Well.
I am wellness personified.
Yes. Even.
Yes.
How was your 1 week off?
It was good. Yes. I had time to bond with myself.
Okay.
Yes. And we had a few conversations amongst ourselves. All the three
And you
of
told
us.
yourself, self.
Yeah, I'm talking.
I'm telling you now.
Bear this in mind, self, as I speak.
So what's the resolution?
So
you,
self,
have you have a new financial year resolution?
yeah, self and I are moving forward in this life.
You've decided? Backward
Together.
gear does not engage.
Forward ever, backward never.
It's very important.
Abby?
It's very, very important.
Yes.
So you've dealt with that opposition
Yes.
that was pulling you back.
The opposition has been, what's the word? Expunged.
Obliterated.
Completely.
Okay. Okay. It's good. Karibu.
Asante,
Welcome.
asante.
While you were away, the world just went round the sun.
Things just kept happening. And here I thinking I was the center of the universe. Clearly not. No.
No. Bezos went up there, he came
He
back.
came back. And then they were told, just because you've gone to space does not mean you're astronauts, my friend.
Yeah. Now NASA is trying to be NASA. Yeah. Okay. Karibu. Welcome to the show, everybody. We'll have several conversations reflecting on what has happened over the weekend, plus looking forward into the new week and what we expect to see. Nothing much, nothing different. COVID-19 is still doing what it's doing around the world. Now there's a Lambda variant. Hey.
Gamma.
No. Surely. Okay.
Gamma maybe coming in to do worse than what Delta has been doing. And everybody being warned that, hey, this actually could be much worse. Western Europe, the United States saying, you know what, this might be an issue. As though Delta was not an issue.
Remind me again. Delta Zan, which originally was called?
Indian.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Indian Delta. Okay. Gamma.
London.
That was bitter.
Oh, Beta is London. Beta is the UK, right? So
Alpha is South Africa.
Alpha is South Africa.
Gamma.
Beta is the UK. Delta is from India.
Now, this Gamma?
No, I think it's Lambda. I'm not sure where they're saying it's coming from. They're just
Oh, it's a hybrid.
it's a marriage.
It is. This is what they're saying, that it's a combination of certain things, which is why they're calling it a little bit more difficult than anything else. Because
Intermarriage.
They're not able to trace the origin of it, number one, but then they're also seeing that there's a combination of different symptoms. And of course, we're looking at a much quicker onset of symptoms soon after infection. And in terms of speed of getting into a much worse situation, we're looking at a much higher speed. So that's what they're saying. Could even be worse than the Delta one, whereas you thought that things were really, really bad with Delta. With Gamma, it could be worse. And so they're still tracing origins of it. But yeah, like you say, it is a marriage of different,
By the
different
way,
things.
this isn't something that is not expected or unexpected. You know why? If a mutation could cause the originals, whether it is alpha, whether it is beta, surely these with time would also mutate.
Sure.
Now, the moment you say there's a lockdown, yes, you certainly limit those possibilities. But the moment you start experimenting with opening up to see how the vaccine works, even the very existence of the vaccine will have a part to play in whatever else, whatever new mutation we see coming about.
For sure.
Yes.
For sure. We're also listening to what the top US health expert, Dr. Anthony Fauci, says, that the Delta variant of COVID-19 was driving the spike in areas with low vaccination rates. And he says that the US is heading in the wrong direction on the coronavirus pandemic as infections surge among the unvaccinated. He said that health officials are considering revising mask guidance for vaccinated Americans to curb the cases. So there is that feeling amongst many Americans that, you know, I've been vaccinated so that I may be able to walk about and do what I need to do. But he's saying that we still have they still have high rates of infections among the unvaccinated. And he says the coronavirus situation in the US is becoming a pandemic among the unvaccinated. More than 162.7 million people have been fully vaccinated in the US so far, about 49% of the population. But they're saying that vaccination rates are particularly low in the southern states. Very interesting, because the COVID-19 ravaged the southern states. The southern states are the ones that were in the situation where hospitals were looking at states like Atlanta, Mississippi, Kentucky, where hospitals were absolutely jam-packed. But then we see low vaccination. And if you want to look at other things that happened, it was where you saw states like Louisiana, serious issues that happened there. And these are the areas that are unvaccinated
and
right
these
now.
are the areas that have the most black people.
Absolutely. And where they were talking about the fact that people have these lifestyle diseases of diabetes, hypertension and such.
Yes.
African Americans.
Yes.
So what are they doing about it?
Right now, talking about it.
Fauci and his
And
people,
are we
what are
saying,
they doing?
Are we saying that the vaccination has been available in these states, but the uptake has been low?
The vaccination is available. Yes, it is. He says that, for example, there have been sharp increases in COVID, like we said, Florida, Texas, Missouri. Earlier this past week, they said that 99.5% of COVID deaths were occurring amongst unvaccinated people. And so now what they're trying to do in terms of what are they doing about it, they're revising their mask use and say, look, only fully vaccinated people can resume activities before the pandemic.
But then this is against a backdrop of information that if you look at the UK, the number of people who have been hospitalized and yet have been vaccinated, have received the full dosage of vaccination is also relatively high. You see, mixed messages don't help. A vaccine is not a cure.
It isn't. And you had the president making that huge faux pas a couple of days ago, saying that they were able to come out after having been vaccinated and they should be fine.
Mistake.
Big mistake.
And the fact that you've been vaccinated
Trump?
doesn't...
Biden.
No,
Unbelievable.
can't be Biden. It can only be Trump.
You know, one of the things that is peculiar about the US right now is indeed people have embraced that message and people are going out. In fact, remember, with COVID and with the lockdown, certain industries not only went slow, but actually stopped functioning. One of them was the car industry. Something very unique has happened in the US. Very unique. Second-hand cars are costing more than what they cost when they were bought when they were new. Because the manufacturing of cars, you know, it's not, you don't snap your fingers and you suddenly roll them out. So the bulk of the cars that are available are now second-hand cars. But then again, when you come to employment, this whole thing of working from home has in many ways also influenced the way people work, but more so in the service industry. It's the complexities of COVID are such that one should just stick to the facts that are known and not deviate from them. These simple messages that have been given, one should not. And when the vaccine arrives, then there should be the additional message. The vaccine is not a cure. Repeat it. The vaccine only helps you against not contacting it. You may very well contact it, but it will...
Against severe disease
Yes.
and hospitalization.
Yes.
And then you say that in the UK. 16 minutes after 6, Kenya's biggest conversation. Let's take a break. We are live streaming on SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Well, Instagram, no, but we have conversations happening on Instagram as well. Are you online? Say hello. Say hello to Ndu. She's back. Yeah. Karibisha yeye na chai ama kitu kidogo. Tumia yeye. M-Pesa lines are open. We'll be posting them shortly. Good morning. Remember, if you'd like to access business news whenever you want to access business news, you can get that on our website. And this is standardmedia.co.ke/business. Standardmedia.co.ke/business. Business news, financial news, technology, real estate, this and more. Plus, there are podcasts where you can get a lot more information and in-depth analysis on what's happening around you. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
This morning at 14, we'll see highs of 22 and lows of 11. 11 will be the low in Nyeri as well, where it's cloudy, going to a high of 19. 22 will be the high in Nakuru, where it's mostly clear at 14. That'll be the low as well. 13 degrees and mostly cloudy in Eldoret, highs of 21. 28 will be the high in a clear Kisumu at 19. 19 degrees and clear in Kakamega, highs of 27 and lows of 15 today. Clear conditions in Mombasa at 23 with highs of 28. 27 will be the high in Malindi. It's raining at 25. Mostly clear conditions at 23 in Kampala. Partly cloudy at 20 in Dar es Salaam. Highs of 30 and lows of 21 today. Clear at 3 in Johannesburg. Highs of 14 and lows of 2. Cloudy conditions at 26 in Lagos. Highs of 29 and lows of 25. 32 will be the high in Kinshasa. Clear conditions at 20. We're looking at light rain at 29 in Beijing. We're looking at sweltering heat. Just take a look at Tokyo quickly. Highs of 33 today. 24 will be the high in Paris. It's cloudy at 17 and 17 degrees and cloudy in London. Highs of 24 and lows of 17. Clear conditions at 26 in New York. See highs of 28 and lows of 23. Still Sunday night. Coming into Monday though, it'll be warm through the day.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4.
Yes, it's 19 minutes after 6. Who's saying M-Pesa zimeanza kuingia?
We're still waiting with bated breath. Victor Sambu says, good morning. So I started my day using public means to work and oh my, it started so well. I can't imagine fares are this crazily cheap early mornings. Voila. And my earphone is on the Spice FM on the Situation Room. It's going to be a good week. Absolutely. David Kiarie says, good morning all the way from Subukia, Kahiga. Salimia marafiki zangu wamesalimika na sisi. Okay, Dan Simiu says Kennel Town is tuned in. Emmanuel Kipkoech, welcome. Abraham Lucorito's tuned in as well. Beta Ashley says good morning. Victor, good morning. Mombasa Road, we are tuned in. Karibu Dada, Asante Sana. Abutwata says good morning. And Phil F.A. Collins. F.A., that name gets me because it's a Nigerian name, but I know that this one is not. Anyway, good morning.
How do you know this one is not?
At all. I don't know now. It doesn't seem like it, but F.A. is a Nigerian name. Phil F.A. Collins, are you Nigerian? It's a new week, new possibilities. Asante Sana for joining. Good morning.
F.A., tell this lady. F.A. City, today's proverb.
Right. The rhinoceros never dances with the monkey.
The rhinoceros never dances with a monkey. The rhinoceros never dances. Period. With itself, with its siblings, with its children, with its... Monkey business is different.
Okay.
Where is this from? It's a proverb.
This is from a place where you find rhinoceroses.
Which is where?
So Africa.
Lewa Conservancy.
This proverb is from Lewa. Okay. It's a Lewa proverb.
Yeah? Surely.
Sheesh, so many more people online.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Very many.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't even know where to start.
From other countries.
From other countries as well. South Africa, Ghana, Omaha in Nebraska. That's where the Ambiogola is. William Sekobane is from South Africa. Good morning to you. Martin Kamau is tuned in from Nyahururu. Vincent Omondi says, good morning, Spice FM. Kisumu is listening. Asante. Mtoto wa Jesus. Hello, dear ones. Watching all the way from Dubai. Mm-hmm. Charity is in from Nakuru. Baida Adam is tuned in from Ghana. And Joshua Munguru Ishmael tuned in from Milimani. Everybody.
Ruben Kigame is in Kenya.
You hear? He is. Ruben Kigame says, blessed new week to everyone. Whatever the new week brings, keep hope alive. This is still a wonderful world. C'est vrai. Absolutely. Getting you loud and clear, that's James G. And the Duke of Nandi says, good morning, listening from Kisumu.
The Duke of Nandi is in Kisumu.
Today. He'll be back in Nandi soon. Worry not.
Okay. Nisawa. Let's look at the headlines then.
Okay. Jubilee night talks to clip Ruto party is what the Standard says. Turnaround plan. Apparently there's a turnaround plan. In a 5-hour meeting in Nairobi, nearly 30 MPs raised concerns over President Party's dwindling fortunes and resolved to start campaigns to reconnect with members and check the DP's United Democratic Alliance. This headline alone, there are about 3 stories in there. Put this guy in check. Why? Because it seems that he is gaining some ground and we're not really comfortable with it, right? So, as CT always says, it seems like these meetings, they can only take place overnight. Can't take place during the day.
People are busy during the day. So what you
We're
do
busy
is you do your other business, then we meet Gioni.
and come and sort this out. Okay? So the thing is that the Kiamba law seemed to have really put a pin in things for the Jubilee Party, apparently. And so they're still, licking the wounds of the sting having been created by UDA in the Kiamba by-elections. The 5-hour meeting held at a city hotel, of course, saw the MPs engage in candid conversations on the party's dwindling fortunes, with those present agreeing on the need to quickly turn the tide. To achieve this, they resolved to begin a reactivation of the party to combat the rising stature of the UDA, a party linked to Deputy President William Ruto. So, after the fallout between President Kenyatta and his deputy, the ruling party has taken a beating, with a section of the once monolithic party that boasted 173 MPs of the National Assembly and 34 senators from across all the regions having decamped to Ruto's party. So, starting to feel a bit nervous because people are jumping ship. And so this was necessary for them to do and say, okay, we have to change tack because otherwise we will be out in the cold. So it looks as if, things are happening.
It was a strategy meeting.
It was a strategy meeting.
Review and plan.
An attack.
All right. And I'm also seeing there that one of the MPs who attended was Mr. Muadhi. And he was saying, you know what, guys, we got about 50% of the vote, huh? It wasn't so bad.
Without trying.
Yeah, it wasn't so bad. Let's not beat ourselves so much and think, things were going so badly. No. We still have ground. We have not lost much ground. If we actually organize ourselves, we got 50% despite UDA spending resources and running an elaborate campaign. The by-election was not bad for us despite the loss. That is what Mr. Muadhi, Peter Muadhi, the Limuru MP, is quoted as saying in this meeting. We have verbatim quotes of what was being said in a closed-door meeting.
Of course. I guess the door wasn't so close.
Yeah. Okay. And as that was happening, the man that they are plotting about, they're plotting their own comeback. The other political parties, what's happening? Well, we know that Musalia Mudavadi has been touring Mount Kenya region. They were in 2 areas in Nyandarua at the same time. Musalia was in one part of Nyandarua. William Ruto was in Rorie ward where they were celebrating that MCA victory a couple of months ago. Gideon Moi was in Mount Kenya also, where he was in Chaka, Nyeri County, also addressing people there as well. So political parties, that is UDA, that is KANU, ANC. They are looking for support from this particular region. Which actually reminds me, remember KANU rebranded?
Yes.
It's a new younger-looking .com Jogo. It's not red, it's green, right? Wow. And there's a time when the party chairman was actually hosting very many delegations of various interest groups, youth, women, wazes, and having conversations about reviving the party, reopening branches around the country, revamping them. That conversation sort of died, which is kind of disappointing, in my opinion.
Yeah, because the youth agenda was quite heavy on that.
Yeah. And also would have expected to see, in all these by-elections, at least KANU fielding a candidate.
But nothing.
It wasn't. That other party of the gentleman who joined us a couple of weeks back here is the one that had a candidate in Kiamba, and Kanu didn't.
Very odd.
Yeah, Kanu, man. Chama, ya baba na mama. It needs to... Intrigues threatening the abort of NASA dissolution, now that we're talking political parties. Okay? So we've talked about Kalonzo, we've talked about Musalia. Let's not talk about Moses Wetangula. Moses Wetangula is facing issues in his party. They met as Okoa Kenya Alliance the other day, and they said, you know what, NASA is dead because we are pulling out of NASA. This is Wiper, Ford Kenya, and ANC. And the NASA coalition agreement says if three parties move, that coalition is dissolved. None of them has written to the Register of Political Parties yet, despite some leaders in ANC saying, we have written. They have not written. The Register of Political Parties says, I haven't received nothing from anyone. But also on the issue of Ford Kenya, until the matter of who is leading, the leader of that party, is resolved in the courts, I cannot take any. I can't take a letter from any faction because they have a leadership tussle going on. So in terms of these parties, it's back and forth, up and down, nowhere.
Did Edwin Sifuna not tell us a few months ago that NASA is dead?
Everybody in NASA, apart from NASA itself,
It's saying it's dead.
says NASA is dead. Everybody. ODM Secretary General has said NASA is dead. The core principles, Kalonzo Musyoka, NASA is dead. Moses Wetangula, NASA is dead. Wycliffe Musalia Mudavadi, NASA is dead.
You know what I think? I think that it's everybody saying it, but it's still holding out a candle, hoping that it can be revived. Because, you know, if it's dead and it's clearly not serving any purpose, kill it then. But then nobody's going to do that, realizing that if three parties would come in a coalition to the registrar and say, you know what, this is not happening anymore. It's very easy to kill this process, right? It's very easy. But then you find that there's speaking out of one side of your mouth, but then holding a flame for the other side, because you know that, okay,
You must have a viable option.
It can come about to help us sometime in the very, very near future.
You know, what I find particularly peculiar is the lack of imagination of these people. I even stopped being tired of these utterances because it's not new.
You just don't regard them anymore.
You know, it's not new. The same negotiation tactics. I will not join so and so. I will not.
Over my dead body.
Yes, it reminds me of the days when I was a child and we'd be playing with marbles, and depending on if I looked like I was going to lose the game, I would suddenly decide, I'm not
playing
I'm
anymore.
not playing with these people, and I want my marbles. Because even the ones that I've already lost, I want them back.
Because I came with those ones.
I came with those, but they're not
And
yours.
they're mine, and I'm leaving.
I've disregarded the rules of the game completely. I now want my marbles because I'm the one who's losing. I mean, can they
And
not
we look at you and actually think you've lost your marbles.
And what I also find particularly pathetically tiresome is that you do not hear too many voices telling you about what they actually hope to do. We have situations in this country that are problematic.
Yeah.
And not utterances of some platitude. We will bottom up and bottom down, and there'll be octopuses thrown in between. None of that. Concrete. What are you going to do?
What are the problems that are dogging the country today that you're going to
Do you
fix?
understand them deeply? What are you going to do? How are you going to do it?
My friend, you wait. That time has not come.
No. The
Time will come.
That time,
They will tell you.
how they're going to do it.
Yes. And they'll call it a manifesto.
My
And they'll
friend.
launch it in a colorful ceremony.
By the way, that is the lack of imagination that I'm telling you about.
Put it in a manifesto.
You will see. Ngoja.
Talk about the manifesto. Talk about a manifesto when you've already told people what is in the manifesto. You are going to produce a book, then tell people it's in here, read it. Who is going to read it?
Ngoja wewe wacha. Are you reading the Standard e-paper this morning? If you have a Telcom line, all you can do is access the Standard e-paper by dialing star 550 star 1 hash 20 bob daily. This 20 bob is taken from you from your airtime every day. Star 550 star 1 hash. If you want the Nairobian, it's star 550 star 2 hash. If you want the daily magazine pullouts in the paper for 5 bob daily, star 550 star 3 hash. 28 to 7. Let's take a look at the traffic.
24/7 around the world non-stop. This is Spice FM.
The name is NCBA, and the numbers that matter to you matter to us. Get NCBA SME business solutions tailored to your business and start counting the special memories. NCBA Bank. Go for it. NCBA Bank is regulated by the Central Bank of Kenya.
As the Kenyans are roared into the home straight here. 4 Kenyan queens have lit up this balmy Bahamian night.
It's where the rivalry is unmatched, where the soul meets the track, where the great are distinguished from the good. An arena where the records are broken.
A new world record. It's not just been beaten, it's been obliterated.
A stage where the legends are born. For Team Kenya, the Olympics is more than just a sport. It is our tradition. It's an event that has put Kenya on the roadmap. The Standard Group lets you watch every minute and every action live in the 2020 Tokyo Olympics. Because we live for Team Kenya. We live for the game. At Standard Group, sport.
Spice FM, Malindi.
There's a buildup of traffic on Mombasa Road heading outbound. Right around here, we're looking at Imaradaima, and it's built up quite some, a little bit in both directions, actually. As you're heading out into the city, it's going to take some time to get out of that one, but it wouldn't be too bad, at least not for too long. Also, we see some traffic then headed out on Jogger Road, headed out towards the stadium, and spilling over onto Landis Road, headed out into the city. Langata Road also just a little bit round the neck of the Wilson Airport, headed out towards the T-Mall roundabout as you head towards Bagadi Way. That should not be too bad. Landis then going towards the city. Quite some traffic in that neck of the woods. We're also seeing Thika Road building up quite some as well. Coming out to the Mathaiga Square, we're also seeing some of that around Pangani. Traffic today seems to be not too terrible, but it's going to pick up quite some people who are traveling this morning because of schools opening today and tomorrow. So we will see quite a lot of traffic going on and out of Thika Road too. Let's keep an eye on things. Tell us where you might be stuck. Also, where you might find a viable option to travel. SpiceFMKE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
City. What you looking at?
My friend, you know, every once in a while, I come across something that I consider to be of great interest. Now, when you see me turning these pages, it wasn't because I didn't have something I wanted to talk about. I was counting the number of pages in this paper that are simply discussing politics. Okay? Last week, we talked about the imminent drought that is facing 10 counties. Page 13 of the Standard newspaper. What is being stated here is that this situation that we talked about is going to get worse. Between August, which is just next month, next week, to December, it'll get worse. So if it is 10 counties facing a drought, people are dying, there's famine, and it gets worse, what does it mean? It means other counties may join them,
Yes.
or it'll spread even wider within the 10 counties that you already have. And yet, the issue of there being insufficient sustenance in some of the areas in this country is not new. It's an annual issue. Annual. Every year we deal with this problem. Every once in a while, like now, it goes beyond the boundaries of what we know. And every year, it is reported that close to 2 million people are facing starvation. 2 million, not 1 million, 2.
And it's not on the radar.
Now, when I told you that I find it very fatigable to read some of the things I hear about politics, I have not heard one of these fellows who are busy telling us, I will not play marbles with so and so, I will not do this. Have you heard anyone saying, hey folks, we have some of our countrymen and women and children in some 10 counties who are having
having issues. Yeah.
Can we tone this thing down a little bit and with COVID and everything and figure out how we can help them, because this is serious and it's getting worse. Have you heard? Now, how do you tell us that you are going to bring us salvation and bring about good things when already people who are in need of the services and the eye that you can provide exist?
You know what? Oftentimes when you have to use imagery to explain some things. So now somebody comes and tells you that essentially they are the ones who are going to lead you in a certain direction, and you can't see any evidence of them. Remember Jesus in the Bible? Even when he kept saying, I am promising you life after, just come unto me, life after. But what did he do in the meantime? Fed the hungry, healed the sick, rose the dead. You could see that there were things he was doing in the physical. Now,
the guy even walked on water.
Voila.
Just for good measure, just in case you're
even
thinking.
as he's telling you we are going to go to heaven, all of us. But for now, where we are, and I'm the one who's going to take you, right, essentially. But for now, here we are. You're hungry, we sort it out. You're sick, we take care of it. So that as we are getting through this existence, you can see that I'm actually saying, I'm not talking about things that are not going to materialize or are not going to happen. Here, castles in the sky, and there's no ladder to heaven.
Those people that you're talking about, City, do you think they're aware that there's an issue in these 10 counties?
If they live in this country. Of course they do.
Are they alive?
They're not aware.
Oh, okay.
Why do you say this, Eric?
Wow.
They're not. They don't live in the same country as you and I.
Okay. Pray, continue.
Their Kenya is different.
Completely.
Their Kenya is looking at 2022 and getting into the position of power and controlling the purse strings. What is happening now, that is somebody else's baby.
Eric, I don't even know that
They're
they're not existent in this world. They just do not care. You will not have an attention to something that you don't care about.
That's
They
it.
don't
That's what I'm
care.
saying. They're not here.
And the things that they're telling you, please don't think that somebody is saying something and that it's just for now. It is the actual belief that when somebody is telling you about going to Ghana votes in Central, when there are people dying, a hop and a skip away, when the people cannot afford life, they're basically showing you how they really feel. It's not so that they can win the election and then after that they will get back into caring mode. It is not. They're telling you, and they continue to show you how they regard you as a citizenry. So if you decide to still take and make that selection, woe unto you.
Okay. Now, let me tell you about the government's response.
Yeah.
There's a gentleman, we have a CS whose ministry deals with this. It's called Wamalwa.
Yes.
All right? They have informed us that the government released a 559 million through the Hunger Safety Network, and this targeted 100,000 vulnerable families affected by the drought. Do we know how it is? Because last week we also talked about money, it was 10B, that had been allocated as COVID started ravaging our population towards the vulnerable.
Yep.
A very serious process had taken place in targeting, understanding who these people are, where they were. But now, when all this had been done and the money had been spent, of course, the government reviewed and said, let's go and find out how this thing worked within the populations. The very people who were targeted and who were supposed to receive the help, some of the damning reports were, they were asking, what are you talking about exactly?
Huh? We didn't get this.
Get who? And those who got said, yeah, we got it 2-3 times and that. And this was supposed to be over a long period of time. Now, if you want to understand how this is interesting, Food and Agricultural Organization, FAO, has committed 1.5 billion Kenya shillings. The European Union, 500 million shillings. So when the government says they've given 559 million, is it their money?
Or is it the one somebody else?
I'm merely asking. It could be they're giving their own money which they set aside for this. But how much more alarm do you need to be raised when We previously dealt with 8 counties that faced these problems. It rose to 10. And now we're being told between August and December, the numbers could increase. What more are we waiting for?
You see, here's that you are spot on here, CT. The National Drought Management Authority was created specifically to be monitoring what's happening.
Yes.
And to issue early warnings.
Yes.
And then there's a ministry, this one now of Mr. Wamalwa's, that is supposed to be responding to this devolution and ASALs, arid and semi-arid lands. That is specifically, Wamalwa's ministry does not deal with Trans Nzoia, where he comes from. It is arid and semi-arid lands, which is where these 10 counties are. So if the government has already set aside money, we have external support that has about 2 billion shillings already set aside, money that has already been committed. Do we have a plan of rolling it out? So they say that in July they gave out close to 560 million shillings through the Hunger Safety Network. It only reached 100,000 vulnerable families. How many families are we talking about that need this support? How do you pick and how do you drop? How do you roll this out such that it does not affect only, it doesn't just impact the 100,000 families, but everybody else? This is where now our whole issues come in. You'll go to that ministry, by the way, and you'll find somebody who will tell you the plan is very much in top gear. They have mapped out the homes, they know the families, they have the numbers, they have a plan. You will be shown a very good plan. And then you'll ask, where is the money? Now we are waiting for the National Treasury to release the money so that it gets here, so that then the money can then be disbursed. And that's where the problems will start coming in.
In response.
And it's a disaster.
Oh, it's a serious one. The CS is reported to have said that, some of these problems that are being seen, Turkana, West Pokot, and Marsabit, that the problems will be resolved because, as he was speaking, there's a construction of 3 mega dams in these areas. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, MP for Saku. Saku is in Marsabit. This is the MP who knows what's going on. He says, look, water pans are drying up, livestock people beginning to suffer. This help that you're saying, can you speed it up so that people can get it? And now, there's also the issue of children going to school. He said many people are going to drop out of school simply because of some of these issues. It isn't a small matter that requires the run-of-the-mill normal rhetoric that politicians like talking about. This is a disaster in the making, and it needs addressing now. Not tomorrow, not the day after, not next week.
Yep.
Not when the dams are completed.
Not when dams are completed or even holding meetings. So this whole story comes from a meeting that was held between the CS and members of parliament from Marsabit and Turkana.
Yes.
Where was the meeting? In Naivasha.
In Naivasha.
They were meeting in Naivasha to talk about what needs to happen in the next 6 months that are going to be a major disaster to millions of people in these areas on what can be done. Now, let me just express my opinion here. What's likely to happen? These are members of parliament. These are politicians. This is a cabinet secretary. He also has a political bone. This is 3 billion shillings we are talking about. How to distribute 3 billion shillings. There are campaigns coming in next year that require to be financed. Jijazie pengo. I have said it all.
24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
They are stealing every opportunity that you should have. They are stealing your health facilities. They are stealing all the progress that you planned for your child. They are stealing all the benefits that university students should have. Your livelihood is slowly being taken away from you, which means your life is also being slowly taken away from you as you watch.
Cut through the noise and stay in the know by texting the word TSR to 22840 to receive these and more highlights and insights from the Situation Room directly to your mobile phone. Don't miss out on the latest from Kenya's biggest conversation. SMS TSR to 22840.
102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. 94
to 7.
Okay. So, the good, the bad, and the ugly of the IEBC recruitment is another story that's being reported in the Standard today. From thorough scrutiny of their academic qualifications to performance in their previous and current jobs, the candidates were put to task to prove that they were the best for the job. A motley of the good, the bad, and the ugly of the Kenyan society was in full display in the interviews of 35 candidates shortlisted for the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission jobs, which ended Friday. From ex-commissioners who wanted to bounce back, junior IEBC officials who wanted to scale the ladder, former ambassadors now looking inwards, former military officials craving for new battles, to former public servants keen to score for their country. The candidates were so diverse as the mosaic, were as diverse as the mosaic of the country. Their varying qualifications and experiences aside, they were leveled at the start by a psychometric test, sat down like classroom pupils, and their cognitive ability and mental agility tested with invigilators checking on them. I mean, I'm just looking at this, and truly, those interviews were thorough in terms of how, they were going through experiences and such. And for me, it just goes back to this, that folks entering into the IEBC to do this job know what they're supposed to be doing. And again, just looking at the fact that the taint on the IEBC that, stains the image is... has nothing to do with qualifications of these individuals or what they're able or not able to do. Forming the commission. Everything. And I think if you look at the history, over the last 5 elections that have taken place in this country.
You have men and women of integrity.
Absolutely.
Men and women who are qualified
Yes.
to manage an election. In
But
fact,
look where there
people
was-
with experience in managing elections
Yeah.
and observing.
For sure. But just look at the scandal, quote unquote scandal that has been around elections. And never has it been void of political interference
Yeah.
being called incompetence of the IEBC. Never.
You know what I find disturbing is my own response to these things. Because I was reflecting it over the weekend. I mean, my perspective is so tainted that even when I look at the selection panel, I'm asking, how did these guys get here? in the
Your
first
perspective of the IEBC?
place? Yes.
So you're looking at the selection panel and
I'm
wondering,
starting with the selection panel and I'm saying, okay, these people.
These guys who are there.
why?
I am simply looking at how these processes have influenced my thinking, where I have a total mistrust for everything.
So you're trying to look at you're looking at the panel and wondering, so
I'm looking at individual, this person.
Who do you represent?
Yeah. Who did this person? How did this person get here? And they are the people who.
Who's pulling the strings?
Yes, and
So you are elected chair of this panel.
yes, and it gets worse when there's a person and you happen to know that person, and you're like, how did this person get
How
here?
did this person get here?
So, and then even when they make a selection, even if it is fair,
Yeah, you're looking at it
that
through those
mindset
lenses.
goes with me,
Yeah.
and I'm still thinking,
It's unfortunate though, isn't it?
no, I am finding it unfortunate in myself that
Yeah.
I have so much mistrust.
Yeah. It has slowly been inculcated in us.
Yeah, but you don't
That the
stand
whole
alone.
issue is, for example, not many people understand, like we were even discussing last week, how this selection panel came to be. So people still sit back and say, okay, so you guys picked a selection panel so that you can put your people in office. Okay. Selection panel is actually coming from various
Sectors of
organizations.
the community,
Yeah.
yes.
And then the people who sit in that selection panel have done their job. It's open, it's public. Everything. They said, apply. They said, these are the people who applied,
They
published
even-
in the paper.
yes, they published
Then
them,
we have
plus their
shortlisted. These
qualifications.
are the people we have shortlisted. We have invited them for interviews. The interviews are public for all
On
to see.
this day.
On this day.
You even know who is coming on which day.
You have seen them performing. And then you're still wondering,
You know what it reminds me of is I watched a documentary about a woman who her husband in the earlier years of their marriage had assaulted her quite frequently, and rather than kill him or run away, she started to poison him with arsenic. Very, very slowly. So there was a little bit, you would not be able to detect it. He would feel a little bit sick every now and then. So she just kept giving him a teaspoon of arsenic every day in his tea until he died. Got to the point where he couldn't take it. So this is it.
You couldn't trace back.
Couldn't trace back where did it come from until she eventually, admitted to it. So he was sicker and sicker as the days got by. Couldn't really trace where it had come from, but
And
he
she was
sick.
taking care of him.
She was taking care of this man, offering him his tea every day, but remembered what had happened to her in the earlier years and said, the only way to get rid of this thing is to kill this man, but I can't slit his neck, slit his throat, so I'll just poison him daily. And I think that is what has happened in society. That there's something that has happened that has then triggered this wanting to get rid of the problem, but Kenyans are not at the point whereby they're ready to come out and say, damn this beast. So there's a little bit of mistrust that has been introduced daily, every day, and then it comes out in ways like this. You hear there's COVID. No way. There's no COVID. They're looking for money. You hear there's IEBC that is interviewing people. No. This panel.
They're putting people in there.
So you can imagine, over time, the things that have been happening over time inculcated into the mindset of Kenyans that you just can't trust the way things are being done. And then you see it very evident. The man was sick. Kenyans just don't trust the processes anymore.
We're at that point.
No, I was actually very alarmed. I alarmed myself. I said, yeah? When did I become this person?
You changed.
Yeah, no, I changed. And it's not just with relation to politics. It's affecting the way I look at many things in my life.
It's the arsenic, bro.
Yes.
It's the arsenic. A little spoon every day.
Yes.
And here you are.
You're sick.
My system has been poisoned.
Yes.
Yep.
Page 16 of the Standard. There's this former MP called Gideon Mwiti. He was the MP for Imenti Central. He has died. The headline is Comical Former Imenti MP Haunted by Pyramid Schemes, Rape Cases, Dies. So he talks about who this man was. He died at the age of 57. Apparently, he had this condition that he was in one of his widow's houses in South B, and then he was rushed to a hospital. He succumbed to his condition while waiting for a doctor to arrive at around 4 a.m. Now, that is not the way of the story. That is the unfortunate side of the story. Then we are told now who this man was. When he was campaigning to be MP, he was popularly known as Livondo or Mr. Moneybags because his campaigns were lavish.
Wow,
and also,
with money.
he was very good with sorting out people's problems. You have a problem. What's your problem? Per psycho, you're given some cash to sort out your problem. Do you know who he beat to get that ticket in 2013? He beat former MP Getobu Manyara, former Minister Kirugi Mutumkindia, and the current MP Kirima Ngushine.
He felled
Heavyweights to become the MP. He's not like a small person. He's somebody who had very many issues of cash and coming up with organizations and companies that then would collapse. For example, early 1990s, he opened Professional and Business Community Sacco, PubCo, a matatu financing scheme at Nasiko Plaza in Nairobi. Within 2 years, PubCo closed shop with millions of investors' funds and unpaid rent to Nasiko Sacco. 2004, he resurfaces with the Kenya Akiba Microfinancing Limited to lend money to entrepreneurs. In 2009, Akiba, among schemes, closed and accounts frozen by the Central Bank of Kenya. It had over 6,000 customers and 300 employees. 2012, Justice Alfred Mabea orders CBK to pay Akiba 1 billion shillings for arbitrarily closing down the business after Akiba sued the CBK and the Attorney General, claiming over 930 million shillings in damages. At the time of his death, he was a director of at least 5 lending businesses. So he was playing in that area of finance and lending. Start a company, people come in, people put in money, people borrow, and then something happens, it collapses. But never say die. Comes up with another one. Collapses. Never say die. Another one. It collapses.
Well, he didn't have to.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have to say die?
He just died.
When he was broke, he would surprise his supporters after meeting them if they asked for handouts. He'd tell them, let us reverse this generosity cycle today. Okay? Without batting an eyelid. I'm the one who's broke. You're asking me for money. Why don't we just play it the other way around? Now, you guys give me
Give
money.
me money. I've been giving you before.
Yeah,
I
come
mean.
on. Surely. It was funny. Funny man.
Yep.
Do you have the business daily today?
Mm-mm.
You don't have it?
I was unable to get it.
Ay. That's a very
Just
unfortunate.
like I was also unable to get the star.
Ay.
However, all is not lost.
Huh?
Something that we should pay attention to. Okay, China has entered the vaccine diplomacy race in full force. I'm looking at an article on page 4 and 5 of the East African, and among the countries that appear set to start benefiting from this, our neighbor Ethiopia.
Okay.
But Ethiopia has had a long relationship with China. Because if you recall, Ethiopia at some point in time in their history, well, in the not too distant past, was very communist leaning. Okay? Now, the way the headline of this particular matter was put in the East African was China-US spy in Africa over COVID vaccine. Beijing is using pandemic crisis to promote Silk Belt Initiative as EU-US rivals show skepticism about its shots, whose efficacy has been queried. Now, in my mind, this is the story of how civilizations begin to collapse and decay without even realizing. These very countries that are now pitching a fit about China have played a very pivotal role in making China what it is, if not them directly, the citizens. How did China become the manufacturing hub of the entire planet? Because all these massive companies in the West decided to take their manufacturing to China.
To China.
It's not complicated. And for good reasons. It made good economic sense. But are you telling me that even the politicians in these countries and the people who are now pitching a fit did not know that China was going to come out of this not only stronger but better, new, improved, as we like saying in Kenya?
They knew. Napoleon Bonaparte warned a long time ago, let China sleep. For when she wakes, she will shake up the world.
And here we are. China is wide awake.
Yes. China is not a new country. China is a civilization that goes over 5,000 years. Even America does not even know its own history. The Chinese civilization is 13 dynasties.
Yes. And they even tell you, in this particular, it was the Ming dynasty,
and
it
this is
was
what
the
they
Dan
did.
dynasty, and so forth and so forth.
Eish. Keep it right here for more conversations. In the next hour, we look at what these politicians have been telling us. But also, during this show today, we will look at schools reopening. Yep. What's happening? How are you feeling about it? Good morning, 7 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga. Parents have raised concerns over unrealistic school reopening dates, the high textbook prices, as well as school fees. Most parents say with this harsh economic times and schools being reopened before the end of the month, some of them will be forced to take their children to school later next week after they get cash. This comes as about 15 million learners are expected to resume school today for first term. This is the first time since March last year that all learners in both primary and secondary schools across the country will all be in school.
Hatujapata mshahara. Tutoe nauli wapi tulipe hiyo pesa? Fungua shule tarehe 5, 6 huko ambapo kila mtu ana mshahara yake. We cannot work like that, mheshimiwa.
Some of the textbooks are a bit expensive. That's the challenge currently.
Wamepeleka bei juu sana na hata sisi imeshindwa kuafford leo kabisa.
Mwalimu anasema mtoto asiingie shule kama hana hizo vitabu 8. Nimefurisa ndio ninunue hizi vitabu. Huyu mwingine sijui atarudi kesho ama ni kesho kutwa wiki ijayo.
Education CS George Magoha last week urged school heads to be lenient with parents and allow them pay fees in installments.
Mine is to encourage our parents who can afford to pay early, so that those who can pay a little bit later are able to run the school. Because even when you have your child at home, the fee is for feeding and sleeping.
NC party leader Musalia Mudavadi has called upon political leaders to preach peace ahead of next year's general elections. Mudavadi, while speaking in Nyandarua, also urged area residents to support his presidential bid. He promised that he'd improve the economy if elected to lead the nation.
Tutembee pamoja. Muniangalie vizuri, mkiangalia gavana Kimemia na macho mawili na pia mimi muniangalie na macho mawili. Amani lazima iwe msingi wetu.
Agenda yangu ya kwanza ni uchumi. Agenda ya pili uchumi. Agenda ya tatu uchumi.
Meanwhile, DP William Ruto has asked opposition leaders to keep off the government affairs. Speaking from Nyandarua County, Ruto asked NASA leaders to plant themselves fast before they present their presidential bid to Kenyans.
Wale viongozi wa NASA wawachane na rais wetu, sisi ndio tulimchagua. Tangu mambo ya NASA iingie kwa serikali yetu, chama ya Jubilee imesambaratika. Program yetu ya Big Four imekwama. Yani hawana plan, hawana agenda. Tafuteni sera kwanza na mutafute chama na mutafute candidate ndio mukuje tushindane na nyinyi.
KANU Chairman Gideon Moi has asked Central Kenya leaders to join the One Kenya Alliance. Gideon, while speaking in the AIPCA church in Nyeri during a fundraising to construct a cathedral, said there was no reason the leaders couldn't join OKOA, which was formed so that it could focus on exchanging ideas.
Tumeanza ile One Kenya Alliance na tunakaribisha watu wote, Kanini Kega, governor, wote watu wa Central, we're inviting you. And you'll be hearing shortly, because it's a conglomeration of ideas where we want a just Kenya and an inclusive Kenya and a prosperous Kenya.
That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
SpiceFM, Nakuru.
It's piling up on Langata Road, headed out towards the Wilson Airport, and then you'll get to the Timor roundabout, where there's some traffic then headed out on Bagavi Way. We're also looking at quite some on Ngong Road today as you head towards the City Mortuary roundabout. Coming off of Jogo Road a little bit there, Makadara, and then out towards Kaloleni. And then we see some traffic on Landis Road, actually quite heavy on Landis Road out into the city centre. Mombasa Road still continues to have heavy traffic, especially around Imara Daima. It's red as you head then towards the South Sea Junction of Mombasa Road. Headed out towards the Nyeri Stadium roundabout. It's going to take you some time to get out of this one. We're also looking at some traffic then coming off of Thika Road. At the Muthaiga Square is also quite hot and heavy, and coming out of Westlands as well. Mudangari out through to Chiromo. We also see some on James Gishuru as you then try to connect with Wayaki Way. Don't forget Red Hill Bypass, Red Hill Link Road will take you to the city much quicker. Let's use that if we can. We're also looking on the eastern side of the city. Outer Ring, Donholm, Kariobangi, the interchange there is also quite heavy. Let's keep an eye on things, shall we? SpiceFMKE on Twitter. Text on 40127. Let's keep things moving this morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
All right, 6 minutes after 7. Good morning. Welcome to the second hour of Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. Today we have full house. Ndu Oko, C.T. Muga, and Eric Latif. Ndu is back. She is looking, like... Back.
What is that?
C.T., today's proverb.
Right. The rhinoceros never dances with the monkey.
Eric wants to ask if the rhinoceros dances.
The rhinoceros never dances. The proverb ends there.
See, that's his interpretation. It's good.
It ends. The rhinoceros. The rhinoceros.
That one too.
So the other part of so that's proverb 1. The rhinoceros never dances. Rhinoceros.
Rhinoceros.
You have a new breed of animal in this situation.
So that's part 1 of the proverb. Part 2 of the proverb.
And if it does, it will not be with a monkey.
Okay.
In the event, if ever does.
In the event.
Yes, it'll not be with a monkey. Daniel Osiemo Ondiere is making a comment there.
Eric, are you new in Kenya? Even Ndu has no excuse. Wow, what did I do? Politicians have for the longest time been engineering famines or tribal wars a year to electioneering period to win. Don't you recall a time GOK Unga was selling or retailing at 90 shillings? So there's a theory there that every time that there's an election,
there'll be a disaster.
That there's a disaster, so that it would seem as though those who are being asked for the vote were going to swoop in like the proverbial messiah and save the situation. That these things are doctored, they're not really the case. And if you've been in Kenya for the last 10 years at least, you would know that this is a normal way things happen.
I am not alone in imbibing this poison.
No. It would seem as though the
Arsenic.
libation has been poured far and wide, and you've all lapped it
because
up.
the truth is, we have problems of drought or famine every year.
And throughout the year.
Yes, it's not on an election year or the eve of an election. No, it's every single year.
Yes.
But it appears to peak a year to an election.
It does.
A year before an election, the drought that year is worse than any other year in that period. And then, you have to mobilize, you have to send people, you have to
gather resources.
And then you'll distribute. We're talking about 2 billion shillings, my friend. We'll be talking about how much it cost candidates in the 2017 election. We'll have a report on that. And then we look at 2 billion shillings and what it means.
What it can do for you.
What it can do for you if you want to go into politics. Now, let's talk about then what we have been seeing. Musalia Mudavadi threw a nice jab at the bottom-up issue, held a glass and said, if I start drinking this, where is the bottoms up? It means now kunywa nyinyi wote. This bottom-up story is basically saying that the leaders of that bottom-up conversation are going to milk you dry, are going to drink you
to smithereens.
Yes. And then the leaders of the bottom-up process are like, wacha neni na hiyo story yenu. This, come on, if you don't understand bottom-up, this is not for people who drink. And that jibe, you can see, hits back nicely. And then anyway, there's a conversation about this is what we are going to do. We have an economic plan for this country, and it's called the bottom-up. And this is what it's going to do to the country. On the other side, we have seen Musalia. He's been talking about reviving the economy. And in fact, over this weekend when he was in Mount Kenya, he was saying, revive the economy so that we reduce the amount of taxes that are being levied on you, mwananchi wa kawaida. So that at the end of the day, you have something more in your pocket than you currently have because the government is taking away everything. We have got to look at how much we are borrowing. We've got to look at how we do our fiscal management. That's Musalia. Kalonzo, I'm going to defeat Ruto. Raila has been tweeting, and now it's become, one of those things where he tweets his thoughts. This latest one is what has been covered in the Standard today. How Raila's civil service will look like. And he says, we have to eliminate conflict of interest. This is the main cause of corruption, public mistrust, and poor and delayed services. When procurement officers are also suppliers, the consequences are obvious. But he was unpacking this and saying a number of things. For example, he was saying, we need a public service that is led by research and policy analysis. So we'll come up with institutions in public service that will deal with policy analysis. Let me just quote what he says. We need to put maximum emphasis on creating and making use of first-rate think tanks who have no job other than to think for the country. We'll need to pack such institutions with the best brains and experienced hands and use them to feed our civil service with timely research, analysis, and policy suggestions. He observed that the country needs to devise a way through which civil servants can be allowed to spend time in the private sector and return to public service, noting that such a system creates an understanding in the public service of how the private sector works and how the two can complement each other. So you work in the public service, you are given a secondment to a company in the private sector, and then now you come back into public service. You understand the people that you're serving better. Okay? These are some of the things. We need to enhance the capacity of our civil service to engage in strategic thinking. Many times, civil servants are caught up in routine office work. They're not thinking. He gave the example of the National Economic and Social Council, which was there in the Kibaki years, which was working very well, and Jubilee has not revived the National Economic and Social Council. Remember, those are the ones that came up with Vision 2030, for example. Right? Such kind of thinking is what will transform us. Previously, he talked about how to uplift the country's villages and towns and so that we can stem rural-urban migration and develop. If you look at all this talk from the politicians and what they're saying, this is what we are going to do. Should you elect me, this is what we are going to do. Should you elect me again, this is what we are going to do. And you look at the promises that they make. For example, let's look at the manifesto. And that's what I was telling you, City. Wait. The how is going to come in a manifesto. I shared a clip earlier this morning on a reminder of what happened in 2017. Jubilee was launching its manifesto. Remember that whole thing of the stadium in Maritime in 6 months' time, the stadium in Kamaring, the stadium in Water will be complete? That was one. It was the same day of the manifesto. On that same day, the deputy president, standing alongside the president, who then were campaigning for re-election, said, next year, every young person who comes out of college is going to get guaranteed internship in the private sector for 1 year.
Those are absolutes, man. Guaranteed.
And you're going to be paid between 12,000 and 15,000 shillings. Internship.
Kenya?
In this country. 2018, did we see a program that was actually taking up graduates from universities and colleges and placing them on internship and paying them 15,000 shillings and 30,000 shillings a year? Can we say it started and then, because of one thing or the other, it just didn't continue? All the promises that are being made, for example, in the NASA manifesto. NASA, by the way, had 2 manifestos. All those promises, what were they saying? They were saying this is what we're going to do specifically. Is it not just talk and too much talk from our politicians?
It's a joke, if you ask me. And unfortunately, that we have to water something so serious down to that, I think is even a crying shame. That it is an absolute joke. That you can come back to the same Kenyans and assume that they will listen to whatever it is that you have to say, when you have said something of like manner over and over and over again. And then you're still bringing it back to the same people and expect that they will swallow it. But at some point, then I don't blame them. Because the people who've been swallowing also then come and stand and hope that you're going to give them something different, and you end up not doing that. But it is a major joke that you can take the livelihoods of Kenyans, that you can take the economic situation of a country, lump it into one, and stand behind a podium and tell Kenyans, I'm actually the one who can deliver to you. And the things that you told them that you were going to do previously, you never did. I'm not saying that you did 1 or 2 or 3. Did not do. Didn't do. But then you come back and expect, okay, how obligated are the people of Kenya to politicians and leaders to say, all right, let's listen to you one more time. And I think Kenyans, and I'm hoping, boldly hoping, that Kenyans are at the point whereby they don't have another one time to give. They don't have a one more time to listen. That hopefully you're at the end of the tether and saying, you know what, this actually is enough. Because the previous times when you've come and told us that this is what you had in plan, that you wanted to do in terms of raising the economic profile of the country, ensuring that Kenyans' livelihoods were secured, you actually didn't do it. And we're not talking about once or twice. We're talking about over and over again. If anything, that flies in the face of trust to the people of Kenya, then you want to come and tell them again, what is it this time that is going to be different? And I think that's the question the Kenyans must be asking. What about this time is going to be different? If you cannot find a thing, then be very clear that this person who's presenting this thing to you is taking you for a ride. It's taking you for a ride.
You know, the apathy that Kenyans have is not absolute. It's tapered with a very liberal dosage of hope. Because if there's absolute apathy, people would not vote. Or those who would vote would be a minuscule, a very small number of people. But somehow, there is... Remember in 2002, what the Times magazine called Kenyans? I'm going to paraphrase. We were the perennial optimists. The optimism that Kenyans showed in 2002 with the hope that things were going to change. They said, you know, this is something that you don't see very, very often. Now, when you find a leadership that seems to want to take advantage of this wonderful quality that should enable them to actually rule safely, freely, and to do the things they have said with minimum adversity, they have to go and poke the bear. They have to continuously bring a situation where people just keep piling up the fed-upness. Okay? They just keep piling it up. And unfortunately, many of them do not seem to see that even if they win an election, and that applies to any of these leaders who want to become president, that presidency in 2022, it will be the most difficult presidency any president has ever faced. And it won't be difficult because of the opposition or because of other politicians. No, it will be difficult because of the general public.
Because of the Kenyans?
Yes.
Of the voter?
Yes.
So you think the expectation is now turning to not just hope and empty expectation, it's real expectation?
It's real expectation because after all, there's nothing that you need like adversity to open your eyes and to make you do things that ordinarily you would not do. For instance, this issue of never really making demands and saying, excuse me, this is what you said, we want to see it first. Okay?
Yeah.
And making it right from the very base of our leadership totem pole, whether it's the MCA, whoever it is, whoever's aspiring. That is a condition that the current politicians have brought into being. They may not think so, but they have. Because people may not have gotten as fed up as they could with the promises, rather the empty promises, but an empty belly and a bleak future, that propels you to look at the whole situation completely differently. Even this hope, you will reposition your hope.
You know what is kind of discomforting, though, is the fact that I think the politician realizes that, and that's why they are not making any tangible promise. If you look at the bottom-up approach, for example, of the deputy president, does it have anything tangible? Can ask anybody to explain to you what is bottom-up approach? What is it going to be like?
Meaning, tell us, okay, fine, we've got it.
So
when
number one,
implement it,
number two, number three. These are the three things that we're going to focus on.
Yes, and how will my life improve as a result
and how it will change. Look at, for example, even Raila himself. Raila talked about one Kenya, build Kenya, buy Kenya, build Kenya.
Okay.
And people ask him, so what are you talking about, buy Kenya, build Kenya? We buy Kenya, we are trying to build Kenya, but you're not helping you people in government. He came back now to try and explain. Friends and political foes have challenged me to explain my position that we can have made in Kenya products if we focus on transforming rural areas and developing skills. So he went ahead now, he released a statement to try and explain himself of the previous statement that he had explained. He was giving examples. Generations of the Digo and Ruma and all other communities in Msambweni, Mutuga and Lunga Lunga constituencies in Kwale have grown with coconut. Using pure homegrown skills, these communities have produced coconut oil and coconut milk, just enough for home consumption. With just a little input on sharpening their traditional skills, would have a locally owned coconut-based factory producing oil and TUI, that's coconut milk, bearing the label Made in Kenya or produce of Kwale fairly cheaply. All those things he has said. The story of Kwale is a story of every part of Kenya. Every part of this country has a product that, with just a little investment in local skills and rural infrastructure, could be turned into an industry employing locals and producing made in Kenya products. Going forward, investment in skills and rural transformation for local industrialization is a must. What has he said? You listen to that. So yes, we are talking about, he has talked about the current situation very well. He understands the current situation. Yes. People, cottage industries, people doing small things, people producing at a local level, that is happening, and they've done it for generations. What they need is upskilling. What they need is being able to upscale. Now, what kind of support do they require to upscale? Says, with just a little skills and rural transformation, we can make this a realization. But of course, go to Kwale and the people will tell you, with just a little capacity for me to scale up, I'll be able to produce, I'll be able to package, I'll be able to label, I'll be able to sell.
They know that.
They already know that. So what are you saying that you're going to do?
You know, if you're accustomed to issuing platitudes, it becomes very, very difficult to move from that norm that you're accustomed to. Okay? The thinking behind it, one understands. But unfortunately, we have a country where such things have been started and they've ended disastrously for the people of that area. Let's move from Kwale County and go to Kilifi. Let's talk about cashew nut growing. All right? We even had a factory. Now, how something that people depend on, the way the reality of economics works is, if it is something that is useful, if you think it is not economically viable, the government steps in and subsidizes it because it provides those people with the livelihood. But you also work towards ensuring that given time, it actually becomes economically viable.
Yep.
That's the whole point.
If you actually just make sure that the entire value chain is working, it becomes economically viable.
Yes.
Because input will be affordable and markets will be accessible. Viability comes in. Now, if you have inputs that are not accessible because the entire supply chain is not working well, then nothing.
How do you
if you don't have a market, then nothing.
How do you explain that countries in the Far East have palm oil? Are you telling us that with all these coconuts that we see and all the stories that people keep talking about, why is it that mnazi, why was it not taken up, that value chain system, so that it actually becomes a wine? Because that's what it is. That's what mnazi is. Why not? Why is it that producers of changa in this particular country are still producing stuff that you're not sure they should use it as fuel on your motorbike or they should drink it? Yet our neighbors have done precisely that. They've taken that local equivalent of changa and
packaged it.
Yes. And it is sold as a gin. So when leaders talk about the things that they want to do, unfortunately, the things that haven't been done speaks back at them over the years. But even more loudly are the things that had been done and which worked and which they let die. We're now hearing about the blue economy. Sindio? Blue economy. Now, you tell me, fishermen in Lamu had a legitimate claim to having lost the birthing sites for their fishing activities with the building of the new what?
Lamu Port.
Okay? Now, tell me, in all the reading that you've done, in all the reading I have done, I hear the labeling of blue economy, I've heard that, but I do not hear of this concrete thing that has involved the fishermen in Lamu. I'm talking about Lamu, I'm not talking about South Coast, I'm just talking about Lamu. The South Coast, there's Mombasa. So that when you talk about fisheries in that particular part of the country, you are told, my friend, not only do they fish, but there's this circle, there's this schooling plant, there is this, there is everything right up so that with this new port, they have an avenue for exporting.
Well organized.
Yes.
So, for example, those fishermen, okay, the government is putting up, is it a 1 billion shillings or 1.2 billion shilling fish facility?
Fish processing facility.
Yes?
Yes.
Now, have you empowered the fishermen so they can go out there and fish better? Do they have access to cheap loans and financing so they can even get better boats?
Yes.
Do they have access to financing so they can get better fishing gear? Do they have, once they've brought the fish to this cooling facility and holding facility and processing facility, from there, how does it go to the market? If you don't sort out that entire chain, what are you talking about building an economy? Liwatoni, same is happening. So are fishermen actually being helped so that they can be better at their trade?
No, they're not. No, they're not.
Are the fishmongers, those that buy the fish from the fishermen, being empowered so that they can even trade better with the product that will come out of Liwatoni?
The same old system where the middleman has a bigger say than the actual person who does the back-breaking work is still in force. And because fish is a perishable product, the fishermen are always being held ransom. And it's the same story in Lake Victoria. Now, when you have discussions about things that you know can work, because you've seen them work in other countries, and you're told about a plan, but worse still, when you're told about funding that has been received so that this thing becomes a reality, and all you keep hearing is stories.
So it's not a matter of can do. We're not talking about ability here.
No.
It's not, because oftentimes what we are told is that, this project and the other, because these things used to happen. We had some of these industries that had been set up where it was clear that the end goal was to make sure livelihood of said community was preserved and even made better because of this natural resource that they had. Let's now apply the hand of government and make sure that they're able to preserve it. Okay? So it's possible. It can be done. It is not in the interest. Can you imagine that you have a leader, politician, government, that it is not in their interest to absolutely secure the livelihoods of the citizenry? Because that is what we're talking about. We're not talking about affordability. We're not talking about ability to do it. We're not talking about resources. We're not talking about the minds to be able to put these policies together. We're not talking about anything like that. It is that here is a need, but where your eye is so far away from what the need is or what the necessity is at that point that you're really thinking only about yourself. That's what we're looking at.
Look at coffee farming in Kenya. Yes, any agricultural product is subject to the vagaries either of climate or market forces. That is understood. But again, the role of government, one of the roles of government is to protect the farmer. Okay? Now, the coffee farmer was not protected. After that wave, when frost hit Brazil, their crop could not enter the market and there was a boom in East Africa. Our neighbors who used to produce coffee still produce coffee. And that coffee, their coffee, is making waves in the world market. We now hear stories in the tea sector. There's a flooding of tea. If there's a flood, if there's more tea available than those who are willing to buy it, the price will go down. Government response, you fix a high price so that you can help the farmer. The problem with that high price or that price, if it is not in tandem with the market forces, the tea will not get sold. We have a situation in the auction in Mombasa. 2 now going to 3 consecutive cycles. You have loads and loads of tea not being sold. Again, you ask yourself, but folks, we are not talking about something that is complicated, something that is not understood. This region has been growing tea for the longest time. We've been growing coffee for the longest time. Even other countries have the same problems as we do when market forces or the weather does its thing, but the governments come in and protects the farmer.
Yep.
Now, I have not heard of a single political leader who has any You're talking about the manifestos,
Manifestos.
Manifestation
Manifestation of the
itself.
lies.
Yeah.
No. Let it come when it will. And even when it does, the lingering question in my mind will be, what is this thing that you are telling us you are going to do that will ensure, forget this general story of bettering people's lives. No, let's start with these far-flung places. We have Lake Turkana. Jokes have been made about certain parts of that lake where they say that there are certain parts of that lake where on the whole planet fish can die of old age.
The fish calls you out. Sunikule bwana. Hey.
What's wrong with you? Don't you know how this thing is done? Hiya.
Wex.
I'm here.
Kuja, I have others. And here we are. Let's take a break. 7:30. Kenya's biggest conversation continues. We are talking about, politicians, they're out there now with their rhetoric. It's all out there. It's bottoms up. It's economic empowerment for rural and urban, whatever. It's everything. It's reviving the civil service. It's curtailing the public debt. It's all of that. But who among them is actually being practical and saying, this is what and this is how? All of them are highlighting the current problem. All of us can see our current problem. You don't need to come and tell me, you're not wearing, you don't have shoes.
We can see.
I am the one who does not have shoes, my friend. I know I don't have shoes, okay? But who is telling you how they're going to make sure that you can get a pair of shoes? Okay. Jobs.standardmedia.co.ke. Remember, every day, as we're beginning this week, visit that website because there are very many jobs that have been listed. And these are legit jobs. It's managed and curated by the Standard Group. So we've done some bit of background checks. Oxygenate Group is looking for a sustainability manager. Kenya Wine Agencies Limited, Kwal, they're looking for a procurement intern. Kenya Red Cross is looking for a clinical officer in the Dab. They're also looking for a clinical officer anesthetist. The Microsoft is looking for senior recruiter in engineering. Microsoft is looking for a senior recruiter for engineering. Lutheran World Federation is looking for a finance and administration assistant. This and many more jobs at standardmedia.co.ke. If you don't find a job that is in your line, you can subscribe and then you will be alerted whenever your kind of job is listed. Good morning.
24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Do your callers frequently ask you what stories made the news headlines? Introducing the Call Bulletin, courtesy of Skiza. You can now keep your callers informed and up to date with the latest news updates from KTN News, courtesy of Skiza. Dial star 811 star 795 hash to subscribe today. Set the tone with Skiza.
Hai, mheshimiwa. Uko kwa supermarket na umevaa uniform?
Yeah, of course. Unajua pia sisi tunaambiwa turudi shule tusome ndio tupate degree.
Oh, that's why umechagua Naivas mkubwa.
Of course my sister, because of quality shopping na discount.
Na, unarudi class gani?
Jana kwa wazee, tuko rada kurudi tena with the Naivas back to school. You might not be ready to go back, but we're ready for you. It's time again to enjoy the widest selection of school products at Kenyan-friendly prices. Plus, score points with your Naivas card. Go back to school.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your
All right, we're still looking at cloudy conditions in Nairobi this morning at 13, highs of 22, lows of 11. 11 and cloudy in Nyeri, highs of 20. 22 will be the high in Nakuru, it's cloudy at 14. 21 highs in Eldoret, partly sunny conditions at 13 and mostly cloudy at 19 in Kisumu with highs of 28 and lows of 19. It's mostly cloudy in Kakamega at 16, highs of 27, we'll see lows of 15. And 23 and sunny in Mombasa with highs of 28, lows of 23. 24 will be the low in a mostly sunny Malindi, highs of 27. We're seeing highs of 28 in mostly sunny Kampala at 23. It's partly sunny at 21 in Dar es Salaam. Highs of 30, lows of 21, and 14 will be the high in Johannesburg. 4 degrees and clear this morning. Quite chilly though. It'll come down to lows of 2. It's mostly clear in Lagos at 25, highs of 29, lows of 25, and we'll see lows of 21 in Kinshasa. It's currently 19, clear. It'll go to highs of 32.
Are
you ready? Okay.
Spice FM.
Okay, so what does it look like now? We're still seeing heavy traffic along Mombasa Road, especially at the Imara Daima section of Mombasa Road this morning. Quite heavy there as you're going out into the city. The back way into the city doesn't look too bad right now. All right, other parts. What are we seeing? Coming out of Westlands, then going towards the city is also quite slow. On Jogo Road, Makadara, it has built up quite some out towards Shaurimoyo and then onto Landis Road, spilling over into the city. Very slow this morning. Heavy traffic in that area. Let's come back to Mombasa Road, where then you're going into around South Sea and out towards Nairobi West into the Timor roundabouts. Very slow. Also joining from Langata Road out towards Bagathi Way. Heavy traffic there as well. Coming off Langata right around Wilson Airport. Very slow this morning. Upper Hill, some workings of traffic in there as well. Muthaiga coming towards Pangani, heavy traffic. We're also looking at it hot and heavy coming out of Westlands. It's Monday morning. It's to be expected. Off onto Thika Road, in and out of the city. Also heavy. Schools are opening, so things are going to get crazy this week. Keep out for that. SpiceFMKE on Twitter. Let's text on 40127.
87.9 Spice FM. Mombasa. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
It's 23 minutes to 8. Conversation continues. In the room this morning is Eric Latif, CT Muga, and Ndu Oko.
You know, I'm still stuck on that blue economy. How do you explain the proliferation of Chinese fish? Fish coming from China. The fish don't know they're Chinese. The fish coming from China flooding our market. How do you explain it? How do you explain foreign trawlers using Kenyan license to trawl on our shores? How do you explain it?
How do you explain milk from Uganda?
Yes.
How do you explain poultry from Uganda and Tanzania? Why?
That even I can explain. I don't even mind it because those are our trading partners. They're our neighbors. I mentioned China because China is rather far. Okay. And you know this fish we're talking about? We have fish. We don't have to import it. We actually have fish. We have a whole ministry that deals with these things. You have departments. You have a Department of Fisheries.
State Department with a PS.
Yes, forget that. We even have a research unit that deals with nothing else but fisheries. Research.
And this is coming less than 15 years after the government spent so much money boosting fish production in the country. Going around the country, giving people fingerlings, giving people feed, encouraging people to start doing what? Putting up fish ponds.
Yes.
In the country. A few years later, we are actually talking about the cheaper fish is being imported in this country.
So then you beg the question.
And the people who are talking to us are not telling us. So, in fact, they were in Mombasa, they were in the coast last week, right? Raila was in the coast, Ruto was in the coast.
Everybody was in the coast.
The president was in the coast, right? We are talking about blue economy here. Was that among the issues that were being addressed?
No.
By the leadership? Saying, okay, so here we are. For example, fishermen around Mombasa, around Likoni. There's a Liwatoni facility that's going to be ready in a couple of months' time, and this is what the progress is. So this is the organization, so that you can all properly take advantage of the Liwatoni facility. This is how we are going to organize ourselves, so that you fishermen who have been fishing, and this is how you earn your livelihood, this is how you can be facilitated to go and fish and come back with good quality fish. You in the market, this is how you can access this fish. When it comes from the fishermen, it shall go to Liwatoni, it shall come from Liwatoni, it shall then enter the market. And it shall even go up country. The transportation. Is that conversation being held?
Do you hear it?
Maybe it's actually happening, but it's behind closed doors. But are the people, the stakeholders, aware that this is happening?
And there are even rumors that that particular Liwatoni project has stalled. How do you explain all this? It is not possible for a foreign trawler to have a license in Kenya unless there is a profiteer within the country who has made it possible for that person to get the license.
There's a local partner.
Yes.
And what the local partner is basically just doing here is taking advantage of the fact that you have come in and you have superior equipment. The local partner could work with local fishermen who
to
have
build the capacity.
superior equipment.
Yes. So, you know, the one favor that a Kenyan can do for themselves is to simply look at the situation straight in the eye and speak some truth to it. And it's not a truth that is specific or peculiar to any particular region. It is peculiar and specific to everybody.
Yeah.
Okay? Ndu puts it very well. These people do not mean good for you. Please understand it. Because if they did, they're actually quite capable of addressing your real problems. They're quite capable.
Yeah.
But it is not something they consider important, which tells you they don't consider you to be worth that amount of bother.
No, CT. I'm going to go further than that. They don't consider you.
Period.
Because if I consider you, CT, there will be certain things that I would do. If I actually do consider you, you would actually see that there's certain things I do, at least to keep your machinations to a dull roar. I'll say, okay, let's not allow CT make too much noise. Let's at least take care of this, that, the other thing in a continuous fashion. But they don't consider you. When they do consider you is when there is something that they will benefit from this. Right now, Kenyans are being considered more than they've been considered in the last 4 years. Why? Because the hope lies therein that you will give your vote. Once they are done with that, you are discarded like yesterday's trash. They don't consider you. Because if they did consider you, these things that we're complaining about now would be addressed. These things that we're having issue with, that people live in an area that is so resource rich, but they're dirt poor, that children don't have the opportunity to go to school because they cannot afford it. Meanwhile, there should be programs put in place that takes care of things like education. We're looking at industries that have gone to naught because attention has not been given. We're looking at a country, people from my country have come to do benchmarking here on dairy, for example. But then you're not able to provide safeguards for your farmers in this country. What are we talking about? So, I'm sorry. They don't consider you.
Period.
And
there.
that's what should be in the mind.
So basically what we are saying today is, yes, the politicians, they've started. The rhetoric is back up in top gear. They have plans that they're talking about. But what we need to do as we listen to them is ask the question. Don't just come and tell me this is bottom up, or this is rural empowerment, or this is the one and the other. Give me the exact plan. The exact plan. What is this bottom up? If we go, for example, you are in the real ward over the weekend and you're talking bottom up, look, how translate that bottom up directly so that the people of Ruria can see this is what you're talking about. Yeah. You are saying that we as farmers, we grow cabbage, we have dairy, we have all this and the other. This is how we are going to benefit. This is how it's going to be different. Not telling us it's bottom up so that sasa mwananchi wa kawaida atakuwa nice. What have you said to me as a person of Ruria Ward? What have you said to me as a person of Kilifi when you tell me that, buy Kenya, build Kenya? You know, what have you said? And when you give an example and you use me as an example and you say, you know what, I have been depending on coconut and I have been climbing up this tree for a long time and harvesting palm wine and using it. If you're using me as an example, tell me exactly how things are going to be different so that my palm can then be packaged and be that thing that you're saying, branded product of Kenya. How shall I get there? How shall I get my palm to be packaged and branded product of Kenya? What do I need? I need access to basics, access to finance, access to expert opinion and expert support, and this is extension services on how best to take care of this plant. Access to market.
Access to protections.
If you don't give me those three, by the way,
don't tell me anything.
I think I'll do, with just a little upskilling. I have the skill, my friend. I climb this thing every day.
Alone.
I know how to harvest palm wine. I have the skill. Have I told you that's where the problem is? If we don't ask these people those questions, then we're ending up going into 2022. We will be told, we'll be fed the same rhetoric that we're fed. We will be told about stadia. We will be told about youth, vijana wapate nafasi za ajira. We will be told about laptops. We'll be told about very many things. We will even be told, you see that whole thing that was in the BBI about help, and I don't know, the youth will get, 7 years. You'll definitely see it in some manifesto. Come out of university, and for 7 years, you're not going to be required to pay help. But what you're not telling me is, in those 7 years, what do I do? Am I getting access to opportunities? Because the 7 years will lapse, and then I will start paying help.
Not only that, you have finished your university and you got help. Help expects you to pay back, but you have nothing to pay.
You have nothing to pay
it back with, which also means you have nothing to make a living. So, how encouraging do you think you are to anybody who wants to seek further education beyond tertiary learning?
And I think it's very important at this point to say, the question might come, so then what do you expect government to do? And this is why I have to put a foot down and say, you expect government to create an environment where all these things that we're talking about are possible. Because you know what? That is their job. It is not the job of government to provide jobs. It is not the job of government to go into the farm and till for you. It is the job of government to make the environment conducive where these things can happen, and not just happen once and then we clap, but for these things to happen continuously and get better and better over time. Go anywhere, and that's what they actually teach. Kenya School of, that is what they teach you. This is what you should know that is supposed to be happening. So when you sit and you look at the youth who's graduated from a TVET, for example, in the next 3 years, or a university in the next 4 years, and then does not have, one, access to credit if they want to start a business, does not then have an environment whereby they can go apply for a job and then be able to be paid, whereby they're able to apply their skill and knowledge that they've learned over those years. That is not happening. There's a problem. Where farmers, when we say agriculture, the bedrock of the economy, where farmers are not able to get the inputs that they need at a price affordable so that they can now put in and then get something for profit that they will live on. If that is not happening, then there's a problem. Whereby goods come in from another country and they are cheaper than that what you have here, and you're not protecting the same farmers, we have a problem. And these are the questions that we ought to be asking. When that politician comes, and it doesn't matter who it is, it doesn't have to be somebody who's read big book, as my father would say, that will come and ask you those questions. No, it is the farmer who is asking. It is the person who is asking, who has to walk miles to take their food to market. It is that person. When somebody comes to you and says, give me your vote because we care about whoever, bottoms up, those are the questions. So now when I take my bag of maize to the market, how can I be sure that my input then will be comparable to the profit that I make tomorrow so that I can send my children to school? Those are the things that we're talking about.
Do you remember how often we discuss this issue of legislation, and there's a toing and froing about we have too much legislation, actually we don't. Not really. And I think sometimes the wool is, our eyes are covered with that wool of legislation because it exists and there's so much of it, you're befuddled. And yet, there is, in my mind, some specific legislation that we should have that we don't have. For instance, we keep talking about the cartels. We keep talking about the cartels within parliament. We keep talking about the cartels within government. In essence, these aren't just cartels. These are criminal enterprises, and these are criminal organizations. Do we have, for instance, a specific law that deals with just criminal organizations? Meaning, it is crafted so that when you fall into that group of what we call a cartel, this is how you are dealt with. Okay? Because cartels are dealt with in the same way you deal with a chicken thief, in the same way you deal with somebody who stole someone's maize from the farm. It's the same law. Do we have specific laws that deal with these people whom, as we keep saying, are committing crimes against humanity? What do I mean? Meaning, if you fall into that category of anyone who can be referred to as a cartel and there's evidence, certain things happen that are a deterrent. For instance, even as the case is going on, everything that you own is not just frozen, but other things take place. But the very people who would make these laws are the very people who are part and parcel of these cartels. So do you see a situation where anything that targets something that everyone understands and knows to be such a great ill, do you see such a thing happening?
When you want to deal with a problem, just so that maybe we can make it a little bit clearer. We had a couple of years ago, Muthoni, the drama queen, and when she said something and she said, everything needs to go.
She was categorical about that, wasn't she?
She said, everything needs to go. And I listened to her and I was like, oh, okay, maybe it's a bit radical. How are we going to... But then I think about it. When you have rot, what needs to happen in order for you to get back?
You amputate it.
You cut it off? That's the only way. Even if you're going to go limping, but you cut it off. That's the only way. And this is what we're looking at now. If people have been making you promises year in, year out, saying that they're going to do this, and if anything, what you've seen is an exacerbated state of things in the country. It's getting worse by the day. And it's not new people. The same. The same people.
Same.
I don't know. The same people are coming to tell you, yeah, well, we're going to actually...
No, we understand the problems that you're facing.
To me, it's funny.
We
the same people come and
understand the
tell
problems
you,
you're facing.
Don't worry. Just vote me in. These things, I'll sort them out.
There's one particular phrase that I heard that more or less made my day. This mudslinging and to and fro that politicians do. Jubilee was an excellent party. And then NASA infiltrated it. And then when NASA infiltrated it, all the projects and all the good things that have been done started deteriorating. And I paused and I said, that is rich, isn't it?
Quite.
Huh? Because I was thinking to myself, wait, so all you require to be a politician is, first of all, to have no regard whatsoever to the simple notion that people actually have a memory.
No.
To the simple notion that people will actually use the memory and remember. Or that you're in the same country and you have actually been in a position of authority so that everything that you're saying should be done could have been done. But that's not what I found most fascinating. What I found extremely fascinating is that this particular voice represented literally everybody who is claiming they want to be president, except for the newcomers like Reuben Kigame and others whom we don't know much about. But without fail, they all seem to be saying the same thing in different words, but the same thing.
It's the same thing that they've told us many times before.
Over and over again.
Same, without specifics.
Yes.
All right? And when they come up with specifics, which is the good thing about what we have got, the point we've gotten to as a country is that we have gotten to a point where people now become very specific with what they're saying. Previously, in the 90s, in the campaigns, there was not anything tangible specific. It would be campaign promises here and there. 2013, we started now seeing the manifestos being launched, which is something that is written that you can refer to and say, this is what you
said,
promised.
and hold someone accountable.
Yes.
Accountable for
Number one, you said this and the other, all right? Which you can use. Now we have that. But we saw it. In 2013, they came manifesto. The party that won, Jubilee, did not go by its own manifesto in running the government. In 2017, they did not take the same manifesto of 2013 and say, okay, so we are at 40%, give us time so we can go to 60%. They came up with new things.
New things to do.
In the manifesto. To date, they have not implemented. One, the most vocal spokesperson of that manifesto, now has a new one.
It reminds me of a story that my father told me, this oral tradition. My father told me the story of Okeke, who would tell his wife every day, today, I'm going to bring you chicken. Okeke comes back. Woman said, where is chicken? I'll bring chicken tomorrow.
I'll bring chicken.
No problem. Tomorrow, Tuesday, was market day. Okay, where is chicken? Don't worry, my wife. I will bring chicken tomorrow, Wednesday. Okay, where is chicken? Chicken has not come. Thursday, Friday. Okay, it's weekend though. Where is chicken? That's how Okeke went and came back in the evening. Where is my wife? I don't know. Entered the next compound. Found his wife, Nnamdi's house, eating chicken.
She was there,
The
eating
person
chicken.
who said he will bring chicken brought. She has been waiting for this one who said will bring chicken, didn't bring chicken. So she not carried her load and went to where?
The neighbor was
There's
just
chicken.
the neighbor all along.
His
The
voice
neighbor
is
was
like-
listening from across the fence. Chicken. Oh, the problem here is chicken. If I bring chicken, I win. Brought chicken.
Wife moved.
Okeke was consistent.
Okeke was consistent. And that is it. Your leaders are consistent in telling you what they're not going to do. Consistent in
Every
telling you how
promise
they
that
really regard you.
Every promise that is made, please understand, that's the list of things that won't get done. All the things you hear, take them in and know this will certainly not get done.
So if you want chicken, move. Stop listening to Okeke. Nnamdi's around the corner.
Now what we need is a Namdi who can promise chicken.
No, who actually has chicken.
Yes, Namdi who has chicken.
And Namdi who's been known to actually eat his chicken and give others also to eat. Then it makes sense. But one who's going to get it and somehow never seems to get it. And then they want us to believe that this time around they will get it.
I will bring chicken.
And you haven't been able to get it all this time.
All this time you've not gotten.
I will bring chicken.
You've even gone to the place where there's chicken in abundance. You've seen
the
all
market.
kinds, colors, feathers, you've seen, you've been there. You just go, you play, you come back. Because you think that this person that you have been telling every day of what you're going to bring for her is stupid. That you will come and tell her today that you will bring and then you don't, and you think that tomorrow is another day. Is there a difference?
Nope.
Because you actually have seen that this person is very stupid.
I'm sure in that week Okeke ate chicken. He just didn't bring the chicken to his wife.
Yes, no.
But when he went to the market, he ate chicken. As far as Okeke is concerned, I talk about chicken, I eat chicken. I come and tell you I'll bring chicken.
Yes. And your job is to listen to me telling you about the chicken
I'll
I'm
bring
going to
chicken.
bring, which I will never bring.
I'll never bring, and I'm actually seeing you as a very stupid woman thinking that I'm actually going to bring, but I just need you to fulfill some other duties there. When I'm done with you, I move.
Vijana wapate nafasi za ajira ili kina mama wetu wapate kwenda sokoni na kuuza na wapate mapato inayofaa.
Sounds good.
Yes.
Sounds very nice.
Sounds really good.
Yeah.
Na tuko na mikakati ambayo tumepanga ambayo sasa itahakikisha mwananchi wa kawaida ameangaliwa vizuri.
I always want to say amen.
Yes. Na sasa hii wakati huu haitakuwa mambo ya ukabila. Hapana. Sisi wote tuko sawa. Tunataka nafasi za ajira.
And then God is thrown into the conversation.
You can't leave God out. Because you know it's kind of like icing on the cake.
Tukiwa na Mwenyezi Mungu, tutasaidia vijana wapate nafasi za ajira. Keep it right here. Let's look for more nafasi za ajira and let's look at how much they spent to give us those stories in the last election. Good morning. It's now 8 o'clock.
Spice up your life.
Good morning. This is the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga. Learners across the country are this morning back to school. To some, it is the beginning of a new school calendar. In Trans Nzoia County, learners are up early to start their first term of 2021, while fourth graders admit they are tired of staying home while their classmates continue their studies. Some of the learners we interviewed say they missed out on being taught directly by their teachers as well as sharing group lessons with their classmates.
Corona ilipofika tu kwenda shule, tulikuwa nyumbani tukirevise. Nimefurahi shule zimefunguliwa.
Nimefurahi kurudi shule, corona imetuweka nyumbani. Nimekuwa ninahofia nikienda shule naweza kosa kupita. Sasa tumefurahi kurudi shule tusome.
Nasikia vizuri, nimeenda shule, nimeboeka kukaa nyumbani peke yangu. Nimemiss kusoma na kucheza na marafiki zangu na walimu pia.
Meanwhile, parents have also asked head teachers to comply with the order of Education CS George Magoha not to send learners home due to lack of school fees. Some have asked President Uhuru Kenyatta to lift the curfew.
Ninaomba sana walimu wakuu wawe na hutu, watoto wasikushwe school fees.
Naomba serikali waondoe curfew kwa sababu ya watoto kurudi shule. Uhuru Kenyatta atusikie sisi kilio ya watu kaunti 13, aondoe curfew.
Hatuna furaha kweli, watoto wetu hii wanajiita digital lakini wasichana kupata mimba, vijana kufuta pangi, lakini tunaomba sana walimu wajaribu iwezekanavyo at least wakafe hiyo syllabus because muhula imekuwa mfupi sana.
Meanwhile, officials from the Teacher Service Commission are meeting this morning to discuss teacher readiness as schools reopen for the first term. The meeting will be held at the Kenya Institute for Curriculum Development and will be chaired by the CEO Nancy Macharia. The issue of hiring more teachers will also be discussed in detail during the meeting. Last week, TSC announced that it would ensure more than 8,900 tutors are recruited and posted to secondary schools immediately. The meeting comes as KICD Director Charles Ongondo says it's all systems go for the newly introduced Grade 5 in the competency-based curriculum.
We have what we call curriculum designs, which is what people used to call syllabuses for all the schools. This has been supplied to all the schools in the country. We have made a departure from grade 5 because of COVID. Now every subject will have its own curriculum design.
Jubilee party leaders have continued holding a series of meetings to plan strategies to sharpen the party after it lost popularity and was defeated in the Kiambaa and Juja by-elections. It's reported that the leaders met yesterday for 4 hours. Nyeri Urban MP Ngunjiri Wambugu, one of the attendees, said after the defeat by UDN PEP in the Kiambaa and Juja elections, Jubilee has started strategizing on how to restore its former glory. Among the resolutions of the meeting was to prevent Deputy President William Ruto from continuing to gain popularity in the Mount Kenya region and revive Jubilee through consultations and by-elections. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
All right, still some traffic on Mombasa Road this morning, especially around Maradaim. I don't know what's going on there. Perhaps we can find out some details. Apart from that, it seems to be flowing smoothly through to the Nyeri Stadium roundabout without too much of a headache this morning. We're still seeing heavy traffic, however, right around the Lusaka Road junction and then headed out towards the Nyeri Stadium roundabout, and then we also see some traffic coming down Langata Road. Aerodrome Road also is heavy as an option for folks getting to the city, but quite a lot of traffic there. Jogo Road still continues to be an issue far back as Hamza today, coming from the Donholm roundabout, the Donholm rail station, through to Makongeni out towards Kaloleni. It's also pretty slow. Still seeing heavy traffic on Thika Road this morning, folks, as you then try to join the Muthaiga Square. And then we see some traffic also. Oh, wow. It's dumping around Gara, trying to get into the city as well. Coming off Chiromo from Westlands, also quite a thing today. Wayaki Way, also quite busy. So it looks like that Monday morning. We'll keep an eye on things. Help us out here as well. If you get stuck, talk to us on SpiceFM on Twitter. Text on 40127. Try as much as possible to keep things moving this Monday morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room.
It is
the
6
only
minutes
way.
after 8. Good morning, 26th day of July 2021. This is the third hour of the show. C.T. Muga is ready with the rhinoceros.
The rhinoceros never dances with the monkey. According to you, Eric, it doesn't dance, period.
The rhinoceros never dances with the monkey. Okay.
I just had a
thought.
I just had a picture in my mind of a rhinoceros dancing with a monkey.
So where was the monkey here? Was it on the rhinoceros' back?
Hanging off the horn with its tail. Okay. Think about it.
Right.
All right.
That wasn't rhinoceros dancing. That was just a rhino doing what a rhino does.
Okay.
The rhinoceros never dances. And if it ever does, it'll not be with a monkey.
That is an interesting interpretation.
Antithesis to the proverb. You.
It never dances. But when it does, monkey.
No. Not be a monkey. There were several rhinoceros that were dancing in 2017. Political campaigns. Okay? People come out. People seek elective posts. How many do we have? 6. All right? MCA to MP, Senator, Woman Rep, Governor, President. How much does it cost to run a campaign? This is both cash and kind. How much does it cost to run a campaign? And why is it important for us to consider what it costs to run a campaign? There's a law in this country that actually talks about campaign financing. And even the other day, when Wafula Chebukati was reminding us that the election is going to be next year, he even started saying, okay, so by this time we want to see all the candidates telling us where they're going to get their campaign financing from and how they're going to use their money. Is that ever followed? Does anybody even remember? And when you talk about people spending money in a campaign, what is it for? Are you spending money in a campaign basically saying that I need to move from point A to point B, so I need to facilitate transportation? I need my supporters on the ground to facilitate them. I need communication and coming up with billboards and posters and flyers and messages on media, on social media? Or are you also adding that, I'll go to a certain place and there'll be a group of people and I will leave them with a transport reimbursement, as we call it. Is that what we're talking about? So there are 2 gentlemen who conducted a survey and they did it with the support of various organizations. But the gentlemen are Professor Karuti Kanyinga and Tom Boyer. Tom Boyer is joining us on the line. He's a governance consultant. He'll tell us what exactly they found. But just as he comes on, so from the report, which is the cost of politics in Kenya, implications for political participation and development, the report already highlights how expensive it is to run a campaign in Kenya. For example, they say the Senate seat is the most expensive of all the posts to contest for. It costs an average of 35 million shillings to contest for this seat. 35 million shillings to campaign to be a senator.
Per individual.
Per individual.
And they're 47.
Average. All right? Now remember, a senator is going around an entire county seeking votes. Okay? The second most expensive is somebody else who's also going an entire county, and this is a woman rep. Woman rep, it costs an average of 28 million shillings. For those seeking to become members of parliament, that is National Assembly, it's an average of 18 million shillings. in a constituency, and MCA an average of 3 million shillings. Now, they did not survey the executive side, governor and president, and he'll tell us why. But as you can see, just wanting to be a senator, you must have 35 million shillings at least with you so that you can secure that seat. Where on earth is this money coming from? Number two, what does it mean? It means that for you to vie for this, you must have a heavy purse.
What Kenyans refer to as deep pockets.
Deep pockets. It must be Mr. Moneybags. Tom Boyer, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for joining us. Welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you very much.
So, we'll talk about the amounts shortly. But first of all, tell us, why did you not survey how much it costs to run a presidential campaign and a gubernatorial campaign? Or did you?
No, we did not. You're quite correct. And the reason for that is quite simple. This particular survey is part of a global survey that has been conducted by the Westminster Foundation for Democracy, who also supported this survey alongside the Netherlands Institute for Multi-Party Democracy and Mzalendo. So for comparative purposes, because in other countries and other jurisdictions, the survey was at the parliamentary level. In order to be able to compare data, we also restricted our survey here to the parliamentary level. So that's why we restricted ourselves to the seats in the Senate, the National Assembly, the Women's Rep, and also the representative assemblies at the county level, the county assembly.
Mr. Mboya, can you go into a little some detail and explain how it is, what method you used, how you went about collecting and then collating this data?
Yes, we did. What we did is that we targeted sitting members of parliament, and alongside sitting members of parliament, also the first runner-up, second runner-up, third runner-up, depending on who was available. So we did this around the country to ensure that we had a representative sample from around the country. And so when we were able to analyze the data that came back, we did have a very representative sample, and it was very useful that we were able to survey both sitting members of parliament as well as those who competed against them.
When you
because
say...
then what that does...
Yes, go ahead, please.
What that does is it gives us a very clear indication of to what extent was cost the driving factor in somebody's success at the ballot.
What sort of sampling did you put into operation? Was it purposive? Was it random?
It was largely random. Yes.
And what was your sample size?
The sample size was just over 300.
Tom, why was it important to do this? And because a lot of people be asking the question now, okay, so all these figures are flying out at us. Why was it important for you to go into this research and say, let's find out how much is being spent?
Okay. I think it's important for us to do this because, we talk about it a lot, and anecdotally, we know that politics is expensive. What we have never been able to do the research on until now is to figure out exactly how expensive is it, because this has implications on our political development, on our political discourse, and without actually having hard data in terms of what does it actually cost to be able to campaign for an elective seat, then it becomes this sort of random figure that is the preserve of only a few who have engaged in active politics. So for us, it was important that we do this so that, this forms something of a baseline. It gives us a starting point so that we can begin to measure this against, our own economic indicators in the country, our own performance as a country, and to, begin a discourse and ask ourselves, is this acceptable? For us, it's not necessarily a question of just looking at the numbers and saying, oh my goodness, that's a lot of money. It is a lot of money, but democracy doesn't come cheap anywhere in the world.
Sure.
So it's important for us to analyze this within our own context, and not necessarily say that this is it's too much money, it's too little money, but it's rather what are the implications of this type of money being spent on elected politics.
I think when we hear some of these numbers, 25 million shillings, 28 million shillings for a senator. 35 million shillings that a senator would use to campaign, right?
Yeah.
You're not even assured of the position. So the question then jumps out at you. Where is this money coming from? Because across board, this is what is being spent. Where is this money coming from? And unfortunately, at the same time, where conversations are being had about the poor state of the economy and the suffering that Kenyans are currently or even were going through 5 years ago, because that's when we would say the last of this tranche of money was spent on an election. Even at that time, the economy was going through, a bit of a beating. So where is this money coming from? And I think it's just as important to be able to ask the question that are we then seeing because you said democracy is expensive wherever you look at it on the globe. But then we still do see some situations whereby even if the cost is quite high, the ripple effects or the benefits that you get thereafter in government can be clearly seen. In this case, so much money is being spent, and as soon as hours after an election and somebody is declared winner, Kenyans are still crying. So the question is, where is this money coming from, and why can't we see evidence of such in the economy in the country?
Okay, you've asked two questions, and let me start with the first one. Where is this money coming from? We did probe that question, and we did ask our survey respondents where the money was coming from. It was an interesting challenge. Let me put it that way, because it is a very personal thing to ask somebody, where is your money coming from? Though, in the context of a public election campaign, I think it's a very fair question. Most of the survey respondents said that these resources were coming from the personal savings, number one. Number two, friends and family contributions. And so that, when you get those kind of responses, that tells you something. Number one, for me, if the primary source of these funds is personal savings, it tells us that our political class must be the best savers in Kenya, because to have these kinds of resources just sitting waiting for this point in the political cycle is a very fortunate position to be in. But not to be cynical, but on the other side, it also kind of tells you that I'm not really prepared to get into it and answer that question for you. But in the nature of a survey, we had to accept those responses, and also to be able to ensure that we can continue gathering the data. So those were the top two responses to that question of where are these resources coming from.
Were there some outlying answers? For example, someone saying, I conducted a harambe, or I went into a public financing mode where I did some crowdsourcing for finance.
Yes. Those outliers were there. They were few and far between. But, it is encouraging that, yes, those outliers were there. There were people who were trying to be innovative. There were people who we interviewed who didn't look at resources as the be-all and end-all to running their political campaign. and had decided that they would adopt other means, including social media, including going door to door. So that is encouraging, from the perspective of looking to the future. There are people out there who are thinking sort of outside the box, and not just thinking about how can I raise that 10, 20, 30 million more than my competitor, so as to be able to ensure electoral success.
Tom, I hold a very strong opinion when it comes to campaign financing, campaign spending, and the impact it has. But I'll leave that for now. My question for now is: we have a law on campaign finance, and this is a Campaign Financing Act. What does it say? What does that law actually say in terms of campaign financing and managing your campaigns?
Well, actually, it is quite intricate. It requires that candidates set up a bank account and that they identify to the IEBC the managers of those bank accounts. There's a whole process along those lines such that would enable the IEBC to be able to scrutinize the use of funding or of funds in electoral processes. The IEBC themselves also came up with some guidelines in terms of what they expected from their experience that people from contesting the various elective seats should be able to use for the purposes of an electoral campaign. Now, you will also remember that prior to the 2017 election, there are regulations that were to operationalize these sections of the Act. Those were held in abeyance for the purposes of the 2017 election, and only Parliament can explain to you why that is. As far as I know, those regulations are still to be operationalized by Parliament, so that is something that we're waiting for. In order to see, whether they will come into play for the purposes of the next general election in 2022. So the regulations are there, they do exist, but they're yet to be operationalized.
So as it stands now, the law basically just says you can set up an account, you report to the IEBC, and give them access or periodic reports on how you're drawing money, on how even money is getting into the account. Is there anything specific that says, tell us the source of your campaign finance?
Well, what it does say is it does identify, those sources that may be restricted. For example, funding from foreign sources, from illicit activities, that sort of thing. But there isn't any real requirement that, even though it does say that the IEBC, can actually ask about the sources of funding. But again, like I say, these regulations are yet to be operationalized.
So 35 million shillings, for example, for a senator to campaign and win a senatorial seat. What is the money used for?
The money is used for various things, but let me first clarify this 35 million shillings. For the purposes of the survey, we looked at the party primaries process, the election campaign, and for those who are successful, the time in office. So we did not factor in any expenditure that takes place prior to the party primaries.
Like what's happening now, supporting a football tournament here and there.
Exactly. And again, this was for comparative purposes because this is part of a global study. So we had to compare like with like. But what any politician in Kenya will tell you, and what I am sure you know, is that we have what we can call extended campaign periods where and this is partly one of the drivers of the cost of politics is the sort of constant campaign politics, where one is elected to office, and because it's of the high stakes involved, very soon after being elected to office, you're already looking to raising resources for the next electoral cycle. So just to clarify that figure is probably conservative, to be very honest, because it doesn't take into account anything that takes place prior to the party primaries.
Okay. So what do they use it for then? Now look at it from the party primary to the election date.
Okay, from the party primary to the election date, there are those. Probably the nominal part of it is any fees that may be required for nomination fees at the party level, at the IEBC level, that sort of thing. The bulk of that money goes into mobilization, transport and logistics, publicity. Those are among the leading responses we got in the survey. But, I think that also the reality of it from all our survey respondents is the fact that in many parts of our country, politicians can't just show up and speak and campaign and leave. They have to. I heard you talking earlier about the transport reimbursement. We had survey respondents who told us the one anecdote I'll never forget is that he told us voters are ruthless. There are places in this country you will not even begin to be able to speak in a campaign setting before the voters have been given something, or at least before they know that there is something there that is going to be left for them. So we also must face the reality that the voter here is part of the problem. The voter here is also driving the cost of politics. We can look at it and say all that we wish to say about politics and politicians, but the voter is also a part of the problem here.
Is it necessary? Okay, so here I am with two questions. Is this cost is this cost necessary? And then do you think, because clearly you did the research and you're looking at the science and the analytics of it, but there's a subjective part of it where you have to look at, the reasons as to why these things are happening. Is it possible to wean the Kenyan voter off of this dependence on having to get something? Because a lot of people will say, well, I might as well get it now, because once they get into office, they're going to be working for themselves to get back this money that they've spent.
They'll disappear.
Yeah, they'll disappear. So let me get it now, because I'm never going to see them again. Neither am I ever going to reap the benefits of their time in this position. So is all this a cost absolutely necessary? This 35 million, I'm just going to stick on that because that's stuck in my mind. Is it necessary to use that amount? And is it possible to reduce this by weaning the Kenyan voter off this dependence on getting the what you can?
Yeah. Is it necessary to use this amount in our current political context? If you want to win, yes, it is, because if you don't, your competitor will. Simple. And that's the very unfortunate reality that we're living in. But that's also one of the reasons why a survey like this that we have conducted is important, because it gives us an opportunity to look at what we were talking about earlier with regards to campaign finance. We need to have a very serious look at our campaign finance infrastructure, so that we make sure that campaigns for elective seats are conducted within certain parameters. And we've already started that journey. So, I don't think we should be too discouraged, but I think that there is need to, obviously operationalize regulations that are still sitting in abeyance. But also, this is not a one-off discussion. This is something that we need to look at continuously. This is something for which we need to conduct very serious and continuous civic education, so that the voter is aware, for example, that my local MCA is entitled to use X amount during his campaign. And leading into your next question, what can we do to wean, the voter off this? We have to understand that we have developed a very negative political culture, which is driven by patronage, driven by handouts. And so, we have actually in place at the national government level and at the county level government various funds that deal with development issues, that deal with social issues. So, one of the findings of this report is that, the voter is going to the member of parliament for these things, yet there are actually existing funds to cater for some of this development that voters are looking for, some of these social issues that they're looking to address. These are not things that should necessarily come out of the member of parliament or the elected official's pocket. And so if there is greater civic education about these things so that the voter goes to these public institutions looking for this development, looking for these public projects, rather than the member of parliament, then you can actually bring down the cost of politics in that way.
Let's take a break at this point. 8:30. You're having a conversation with Tom Boyer, governance consultant. He is one of two people who produced this report, Cost of Politics in Kenya, Implications for Participation and Development. It's very expensive to run a political campaign in the country. We have always known that, but now we have the numbers and what this means. We'll be continuing the conversation shortly after we take this break. And remember, jobs.standardmedia.co.ke is the website to go to when you're looking for jobs. Greenshots International School, Greensteads International is looking for a teacher of English, geography and history, mathematics up to A level, a senior school teacher of science and others. KS1-2 teacher. This is Greensteads International, and Braeburn is also looking for those. Mombasa County Assembly Service Board is looking for an audio technician and a clerk assistant. Kenya Red Cross is looking for lab technologists to work in Dadaab. Look for them. Jobs.standardmedia.co.ke. We'll be back shortly.
24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
The BetKing Premier League continues to heat up with soccer action from the round of 27. This week, Tuesday, Western Steamer versus FC Leopards. On Wednesday, Gor Mahia take on the Kariobangi Sharks. In the round of 28, Zoya Sugar faces FC Leopards on Sunday and Ulinzi battle Gor Mahia on Monday. All matches are exclusive to BTV, Channel 172 on aerial recorder and Channel 463 on satellite, and will be played at 3:15 p.m. Get connected to Star Times for only 999 shillings on aerial recorder or 2,699 shillings on satellite. Star Times, the official broadcaster of the BetKing Premier League.
24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Shell Helix HX7 and HX8 with Flexi Molecule technology, an engine oil that overcomes today's tough driving conditions and actively adapts to changing engine temperatures. Shell Helix. Drive on.
Hello.
Halo, umesikia?
Nimesikia nini?
Hujasikia habari? Hebu acha nikuambie. Kile kimetokea.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Don't wait for hearsay. Dial *550*1# to read the Standard e-paper from the convenience of your mobile phone for only 20 shillings from your telecom line, and stay up to date for a reliable source.
Clouds in Nairobi at 14, highs of 22, lows of 11 today. It's cloudy at 12 in Nyeri, highs of 20. We'll see highs of 22 in Nakuru. It's cloudy at 15. Partly sunny conditions at 14 in Eldoret, highs of 21. 28 will be the high in Kisumu. It's mostly cloudy. Mostly cloudy conditions as well well in Kakamega at 19 with highs of 27. We'll come down to lows of 15. We'll see lows of 23 in a mostly cloudy Mombasa, going to highs of 28. Mostly sunny conditions at 26 in Malindi, highs of 27. 25 will be the high in Kampala. It's mostly sunny at 23. It's also partly sunny conditions in Dar es Salaam at 23 with highs of 30 and lows of 21. 5 degrees, warming up ever so slightly in Joburg at sunny. I go to highs of 14 and lows of 2. 29 will be the high and mostly clear in Lagos, currently at 25. That'll be the low for today. And it's sunny in Kinshasa at 19. We'll see highs of 32 and lows of 21.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Everything nice. SpiceFM.
All right. So, Gong Road today doesn't look too exciting. Quite a lot of traffic, especially as you're coming down from the junction. But where does it look really heavy today? We're looking at Langata Road, coming down from the Nairobi Dam Estate out then towards Airport View Estate. Very, very slow as you get to Bagathi Way. We're also looking at quite some traffic on Mombasa Road as you then approach the Nyayo Stadium roundabout connecting with Langata Road and Aerodrome Road. It is pretty heavy. In the community area, also quite some traffic. Lusaka Road joining then from Jogo Road as you then join the interchange on Mombasa Road. That's another story. The interchange, however, going towards the southern bypass doesn't look too bad. Muranga Road joins with Kipande Road, joins with Kirinyaga Road. In the CBD, it's not looking pretty at all. And this is all traffic that then connects coming from Landis Road into the city and then coming out of Westlands as well. It looks pretty heavy. Let's keep an eye on things and see what it looks like. We are in the middle of traffic hour on a Monday and schools have opened. What do you expect? But let's talk, shall we? SpiceFMKE on Twitter, text on 40127. If you're stuck somewhere, let us know.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. SpiceFM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
Kenya's biggest conversation continues. In the room is Eric Latif Ndu, of course, CT Muga. Joining us on the line is governance consultant Tom Boyer. They did the report, Cost of Politics in Kenya, Implications for Participation and Development. And what does it cost for one to win an elective post in this country? Hefty amounts of money, 35 million shillings for senator, 22 million shillings for woman rep, 18 million shillings for MP, 3 million shillings for an MCA. And these are just, we're talking about the average for a winning candidate. Main findings on this is, one, the more you spend, the higher your chances of, it's like a Rotary.
Right, winning.
Like participating in those. The more chances, the more you spend, the higher your chances of winning. But that is not all. If you also affiliate yourself with a dominant political party in a region, then you also stand a higher chance. They found that there are people who had spent a lot more, but they lost because of party. Then gender. They also found out that despite spending a lot more sometimes in a campaign, women candidates were not being elected. And there are very many reasons to this. A thought crossed your mind, Ndu?
That, we're saying that the outcome is that this money has been spent by the individuals who won. It's been spent by the individuals who also campaigned.
It's everybody.
It's everybody.
In fact, I want to tell you, open your calculator. Let's just do this math. Okay,
here we go.
Calculator is out?
Oui.
Let me know.
What?
35.5 plus 22.8 plus 18.2 plus 3.1. All right? So on average, that is how much is being spent in a county.
79.6.
If you're in a village, you belong to a ward, you belong to a constituency, you belong to the county.
Right.
70?
9.6.
Times, let's say, times 5.
Times 5. 398.
Let's just say, Tom, and you can correct me, that around 300 million shillings is swimming in your area during campaign period. Is that correct?
Being tossed about?
I want to suggest that it's significantly more than that.
Significantly more.
How significant?
Let me tell you why.
Yeah.
What you have just talked about there is one candidate. Maybe, for example, let's assume that is even the winning candidate.
Yep.
He was not competing by himself.
Yep.
So there are others who have spent maybe similar amounts. There are those who, maybe were speculators. They didn't spend quite so much. But there are those who even spent more, because we came across numerous instances of people who spent significantly more than the average, but were not elected.
Yep.
So actually, throughout the course of this research, one of the things that Professor Kanyinga and I have said is that one of the most interesting follow-ups to a research such as this might be to examine what is the economic effect in a specific location of this kind of money being poured into a location, a constituency, in an award, or even a county. Because this is a significant amount of money, and actually
within a very short time.
How much it is.
Because you're saying this is
within a very short time.
This is between party primaries and the election. We're talking about a period of 4 months. In 4 months' time, 500 million shillings has circulated in a county.
And now here, this is why we say that this would be an interesting follow-up, sort of research to do. What effect does this have on a county, on a constituency, on a ward? Does it show any development as a result?
Probably the complete opposite. But I'm thinking when you said it's significantly more, we haven't included what the governor spent, what is spent on the presidential election, and those are infinitely more.
Exactly. That is very true.
But there's something here. When you say the economic effect, I was going to ask, are you saying that with the exception of poverty? Because that amount of money circulating, it is known as circulating, what then happens? A vortex is created where people just keep chasing this money. Now, does it interfere with what they do on a daily basis? Will people be willing to sit or wake up early to go to the farm or ply whatever trade it is that they ply on a daily basis? Or will they be looking for rallies, looking for spots where this money can actually be disbursed?
Does it influence inflation?
I think you're asking exactly the right questions, and that's why this would be some particularly interesting research to conduct. What we do know from the survey that we conducted is that the way that, like I said before, we have created a political culture where voters demand things, development, individual support, whatever it may be, from prospective elective candidates. And so what it means is that on a regular basis, these prospective candidates are pouring, significant amounts. Even if you don't look at the party primaries period, even before that, we know how our politics works. These guys, even if you're, for example, living in Nairobi, you're spending at least a couple of weekends or whatever it is in the location in which you wish to contest, and you're spending money at that time.
Yep.
You see, so over the 5-year electoral cycle, there is some money that is being injected into the local economy. You see, and what beneficial purpose, what benefit are the majority of the people in a particular constituency, for example, what benefit do the residents there accrue? Or is it, as people call it, the politics of the stomach? Is it just that I get something small in my pocket and that's where it ends?
Isn't that it appears to be just that, though, for the citizenry, that let me get a little bit out of this that I can. But it also does seem the same way for the competitors, that this is not really about governance and development for the country, but that it's about business. So let me get this amount of money, let me invest it here, and then I spend the next 5 years trying to recoup it. Because that's what essentially happens when you invest. You invest, you make a little bit of a profit here, you make back what you spent on the rigorous process, and then you move on to the next. It doesn't seem to me as though people are concerned about what happens beyond what they spent.
Or you lose it all.
Or you lose
also
it all.
tells you that you're actually not spending your money.
Exactly. It's not your money that's being spent here.
But I'm actually concerned. Does it actually trickle down to a degree that would make a significant impact in the economy?
That's the thing I was also thinking about, CT.
Yes. Yeah.
Because practically speaking, how many people actually receive handouts in a constituency from candidates?
That will make a significant impact on their lives.
Yes.
They may be given money, and the idea is for them to sort of like percolate it and let it sort of like trickle down. But does it really actually genuinely trickle down as it ought to?
Well, I mean, on that question, I can only speculate. I mean, that
please speculate.
That maybe okay. If you will allow me to speculate,
yes.
Then I think you're probably right. I would suspect that it probably doesn't have a tremendous amount of meaningful effect for a constituency, for example. It is not everybody who will take their time to go to wherever some public meeting is being held so that they can benefit from whatever a politician is leaving behind. It is actually, a small minority of people who will do so. And interestingly, you will find that, regardless of which politician it is, the crowd may be much the same. Let's not deceive ourselves that if it is politician X, the crowd is these people. If it is politician Y, the crowd is these other ones. Quite often, it will be the same sorts of groups of people.
Yeah.
But what this tells us again is something that one of the things that we found in our research, which is that politics has actually become transactional. It is not about community service. It is not about service to the public, to the nation. It has become transactional in the sense that I know that I must spend this much, 35.5 million, in order to be elected as senator. Why is it worth my while for me to do that? Because then, number one, from our members of parliament are among the highest paid members of parliament in the world. So just from the salary and emoluments that a member of parliament receives, you'll be able to recoup your investment and prepare for the next electoral cycle. Beyond that, we know of the benefits that accrue as a result of being in elective office. All manner of allowances, some of which we interrogated and some of which we were not able to. You become Mheshimiwa, you have an inside track in terms of benefiting from the patronage networks that exist in the public sector. So beyond even all of these figures that we have been able to interrogate, there are other considerations. There are other considerations that one would have when making the decision to contest public elective office.
It's what they'll get out of it. You'll be able to influence a tender here or there. A road will be constructed in some, and a company that wins is associated with yours. So basically, you're going in there to take the same money.
It's business, and again, looking at our survey respondents, the vast majority of them were business people. They came from a business background. They were business owners. As we talked to them about it, a number of them said, I got into this to network, to improve my own network, to improve my visibility so that I can further my business or whatever it is that I'm doing. So that's the unfortunate thing, is that politics has become transactional in that sense.
And now I can bring in what I said earlier, my very strong views in this campaign financing and corruption. because this is the biggest form of corruption that we have in the country. And what we do is we try to shift our focus from what exactly is happening to going to IEBC and laws and regulations and all, but we are basically entertaining corruption. If you just imagine, this is just from those candidates, 700 million shillings or thereabouts in every county in the country. And then talk about the presidential candidates and how much they spend. It's billions of shillings, tens of billions of shillings to run a presidential campaign. It is a lot of money to run a gubernatorial campaign. This, where does the money go to? If you said, I mean, most of them were telling you going into transport and logistics and publicity. Come on. In this country, if you just look back in the last 30 years, infrastructure and communication has actually improved. Today, you can produce just one commercial and you will share it on social media and it will spread in the entire county. Today, you can produce, posters cheaply. So it's costing you much less than it would cost somebody in 1992 to run a campaign. It's costing much less to move from point A to point B in the country today than it did so many years ago. It's easier. We have more airstrips. We have more helicopters available. We have better roads.
I must hire my chopper.
You can, yes. It's become easier. In a single day, you can actually conduct 17 campaigns, as opposed to 1992, where in a single day you could only do one or two. So it's not that the money is going into something that is very, very expensive. This money is going into corruption. This money is going into those handouts, into buying votes, into corrupting the system. And that is where our bigger problem is. Our problem in the elections, as we talk about why do we have problems in the elections every 5 years, let's not even look at very many other things. Let's look at this. If we cap campaign financing and campaign spending, we'll have dealt a big blow to this kind of corruption. That's my view.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right, and this is exactly why it is absolutely critical that we really interrogate the provisions around the Campaign Finance Act and ensure the enforcement of those provisions on campaign finance. Because one of the things that we will be able to do, if that is done, is to reduce the cost of politics, so that you don't have, for example, in a constituency, somebody running for the National Assembly and spending 2 or 3 million shillings, somebody spending 70 million shillings, and imagining that those two people will compete. And the other thing is that you are actually you then take away the content, the substance of an election campaign when it's a bit of a free for all like that. So that it's become more about how much have you spent to be able to get yourself elected, as opposed to what is it that you offer, what is it that you propose to do for this constituency, such that voters should elect you. So, I mean, I think if there is any perhaps major takeaway from the research that we have conducted, it is absolutely critical to ensure the enforcement of the Campaign Finance Act and regulations.
You said, Tom, as you began this, was that this survey that you conducted is part of a global comparative survey. So how do we compare with other countries?
Well, we're looking at that data at the moment. It is now available actually on a website, which is thecostofpolitics.net. And Kenya is still one of the more expensive places to conduct an elective campaign. We're not the most expensive in the world, and probably we shouldn't be, thank goodness. But for example, in the course of conducting this research, you come across things that flag up a number of questions. For example, we run the second most expensive elections in the world. I don't understand why that is, or how it is possible to justify, that kind of a cost. I think we were second in the world, which is there must be a reason for this, and it's not something that is easily discernible. So, these are some of the questions that, are flagged in the course of conducting research like this. So when you can start considering, well, okay, we can make these, we can implement these measures to reduce the cost of politics. But I think at the public and at the executive level, there are also other reforms that need to take place. I think I cannot imagine any logical basis for why we have the second most expensive elections in the world.
Neither can we. Tom Boher, thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you for sharing the insights of that survey that you conducted. Hope to host you in the studio soon.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Keep it right here, Kenya's biggest conversation. If you'd like to get highlights of what we discussed today or any other day, you can get them on your mobile device. Just text the letters TSR, that's TSR, to the number 22840. TSR to the number 22840 for all the highlights of the Situation Room this and every other day. Good morning.
SpiceFM.
It's getting hot in here.
Oh, everybody steals. It's better a thief who brings something small back. And I say to myself, there's no better thief. A thief is a thief, period.
All those bribes, how much?
There are so many people peddling what is false and that it bears remarkable resemblance to what is true.
Politicians have their agenda, and their agenda is to use every opportunity to sell that agenda and to loot this nation.
I have seen major strides that are done in this country when we talk to each other as against talking at each other.
We start getting back into the tribal cocoons which were put to us by the colonial powers. They gave us physical freedom but not mental freedom. We're still mentally colonized today into these cocoons of tribe.
Now, if you live in an area where it's difficult to find a dog,
He's a goat. I kid you not.
In which part of this country is it difficult to find a dog? So that you resort. Nafandi umbo yako iko na pembe.
Ni umba special.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
A lot of money to spend in a campaign.
Or more.
Even as we're talking about it, I was thinking we are focusing on the money that is supposedly spent on the ground, so to speak. But there are always these mentions of money that is spent at the party level, just so that you can present yourself as a candidate, and then there's money you spend at the party level to guarantee you a party ticket. Yes.
Yeah, remember Tom said that this campaign, this survey of theirs, they began from that point. Those that participated in party primaries at the nomination stage, how much did you spend, right, to get the party ticket? And then after you got the party ticket, how much did you spend to try and secure the vote? And that is so much. Now, before that, we haven't looked at now, how much are politicians spending hopping left, right, and center?
Very true. You see, the spending it goes beyond what I think this particular research project actually captured. And I am glad that there was a disclaimer that one Mr. Mboya gave when he said, these are very, very conservative estimates that we're giving. Because one, if you consider the affiliations people have, whether they're MCAs, whether they're MPs, women's rep, and their affiliation to whatever party they belong to, and you start thinking of the campaigns that take place. Remember, there are always these complaints that one reads about with regards to procurement, say at county levels, that, certain people are being favored. People who are aligned. It's a never-ending complaint that you hear about. And then you come to the national level. Again, similar complaints. The only thing, chink in this particular armor, is that with all these things, there's a rising case of stories of people not being paid.
Yes.
We can have that story today from the last election, 2021. Yes. People came into it for 2017. People are still waiting for their money for the
people
goods
haven't
and
been
services
paid.
they
They did this, they did the other. Where does this money go to? This is a very big question. When we say that a senator spent 30 million shillings, just one, and maybe there were 3 or 4 candidates for that seat. So let's say 70 million shillings or 100 million shillings was spent. Where does that money go to? Hey, good morning. It's now 9 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga. 23 students and a teacher who is said to be the owner of the bar where the students were arrested in will today be arraigned in court. Police in Kirinyaga County arrested the students at a local bar at a market in Mwea constituency. Mwea East Sub-County Police Commander Daniel Kitavi says police officers stormed the club after receiving a tip-off from members of the public about minors drinking at around 9 p.m. ahead of schools reopening today. Police had a difficult time arresting the students since some of them who managed to escape were throwing stones at them. The teacher will be charged for violating COVID-19 protocols as well as selling alcohol to students. Elsewhere, learners across the country are this morning back to school. To some, it is the beginning of a new school calendar. In Trans Nzoia County, learners are up early to start their first term of 2021, while fourth graders admit they are tired of staying home while their classmates continue their studies. Some of the learners we interviewed say they missed out on being taught directly by their teachers as well as sharing group lessons with their classmates.
Corona ilipofika tu kwenda shule, tulikuwa nyumbani tukirevise. Nimefurahi, shule zimefunguliwa.
Nimefurahi kurudi shule, corona imetuweka nyumbani. Nimekuwa ninahofia nikienda shule naweza kosa kupita. Sasa tumefurahi kurudi shule tusome. Nasikia vizuri, nimeenda shule, nimeboeka kukaa nyumbani peke yangu. Nimemiss kusoma na kucheza na marafiki zangu na walimu pia.
Meanwhile, parents have also asked head teachers to comply with the order of Education CS George Magoha not to send learners home due to lack of school fees.
Ninaomba sana walimu wakuu wawe na utu, watoto wasifukuzwe school fees.
Naomba serikali waondoe curfew kwa sababu ya watoto kurudi shule. Uhuru Kenyatta atusikie sisi kilio ya watu kaunti 13, aondoe curfew.
Hatuna furaha kweli, watoto wetu hii wanajiita digital lakini wasichana kupata mimba, vijana kufuta pangi, lakini tunaomba sana walimu wajaribu iwezekanavyo at least wakafe hiyo syllabus because muhula imekuwa mfupi sana.
Madeira MP Rigathi Gachagua is expected to be arraigned today after spending the weekend in police custody following his arrest on Friday. Gachagua was arrested at his Nyeri home and driven to the DCI headquarters, Nairobi, where he was grilled for close to 6 hours before being locked up at Gigiri police cells. Gashagua's lawyer Wahome Gikonyo said the MP is being accused of attempting to defraud Nyeri County government of a total sum of 33 million shillings. He'll face a third count of money laundering. Anxiety, insomnia and depression are some of the mental disorders healthcare workers faced in the early phase of the COVID-19 pandemic in the country. A research by Frontiers in Psychiatry states that depression was higher among female medics than in male ones. The report further states that younger medics had a high proportion of insomnia compared to the older ones. This comes as more than 110,000 health workers have been fully vaccinated against COVID-19. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All right, let's take a look at what it looks like now. Still looking quite crazy on Mombasa Road, especially around that Imaradaima area. Just a little bit of traffic now, though, with the construction continuing. That's going to be there for some time. Langata Road is still quite heavy. We're looking at it all the way up Wilson Airport, Nairobi Dam, and even before that, just before Uhuru Gardens, is quite thick. We're also looking at some traffic Jogo Road, past Mbotela and Makadara, out then towards Landis Road, also into the CBD. Still some coming out of Westlands. We also know that they've closed the road from Uhuru Highway to the Waiki Way, use Kipande Road. It's closed as you approach the museum intersection, and people are using the wrong side there at Kempinski coming out towards the city. So just know it's been closed. Were you warned? No, sorry, but it's closed. So you can't use that for now. It's also causing some traffic. That's why we see that heavy traffic there. All right, Kipande Road, we also see it's red. And people are going in one direction. So let's watch out for that. Pangani going towards Ngara, there it's also still quite full. Thika Road is going to be a story for the rest of the day. That's for sure. Keep an eye on things to help us out. SpiceFMKE on Twitter. Talk to us there or text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your...
It is 6 minutes after 9. Welcome to the final hour of Kenya's biggest conversation this morning. City Muga, today's proverb.
The rhinoceros never dances with the monkey.
Okay. If they said so. We don't
You
argue.
do know that
we don't argue
for
with
instance, the
Wahenga.
Swedes would not have a proverb such as this one.
They don't have rhinoceroses.
No.
It's okay.
So only the people who have them may make a proverb about them.
Yes.
It's okay.
It's not complicated.
No, not really.
It's okay. I don't know why I'm saying it's okay, but it's okay.
No, you explained it well.
Fine.
You explained it well. I like the explanation about the rhinoceros and it never really dancing as such. I don't know where you got that from and what makes you think the rhinoceros is incapable of dancing. I don't really understand. But it's quite capable.
Heavy is the head that wears the horn.
Even if it's just 1.5.
It's heavy. Not easy to dance.
The rhino is heavy, first of all.
Mm.
Dancing. What do you mean?
If it is able to run, it is able to dance.
But you know what they say, if a rhino is chasing you, you run in a straight line, then just turn left. It'll keep going.
These are just
Okay. And there are people who've done that and have survived to tell the story.
Those are the ones now who are able to tell you that because they've done it.
What you're telling me is to believe that there are dead people who like talking, isn't it? How do you get into a position where a rhinoceros is chasing you?
If you live in the bush with the thing now.
Well, a rhino is chasing you?
Yes.
So you were there crossing from one side to the other.
And then the rhinoceros saw you.
And then the rhinoceros
and
saw
it also crossed. And so instead of waiting,
You encroached into its territory.
you decided to run.
You see a thing like that, no more you run now.
What on earth are you doing in a territory where there are rhinoceroses?
But you all live there together.
Yes.
You're in the same
People
habitat.
who live in the same habitat would know exactly what to do.
That's what I'm telling you now. They're the ones who said that if a rhino is chasing you, because they live there, they see this. is
Because
how
they
this thing
know.
operates.
That's
They
how
know.
they learned.
They know that the rhino has poor sight, so they know that it's going to take some time to change direction.
Do
so
I
you just turn
do I
left.
do I have permission to just ask you a simple question?
No, I don't even want the question. No. No, I can see you coming from very far, and I have refused. I'm not answering.
Stephen, he calls himself at... Okay, that Twitter handle is one. Our politicians have no obligation to deliver. They buy your vote with 50 shillings, unga, lesso, T-shirts and other inducements, which they spend 5 years accruing for the next round of buying your vote. He goes on to say, if we want leaders who will deliver on their promises, then we, the citizens, must want in and need leaders that will be accountable to us, not their party leaders or their sponsors or the power that be, and we demand strategies on how they will deliver. Yep. just coming on off the back of the conversations that we've had this morning, right? Politicians are coming to us with all these promises, colorful promises of how Canaan is going to look like. There'll be milk, there'll be honey, there'll be water, there'll be everything. They're not telling us whether we're going to, use a bridge, whether we need to build a bridge, whether it's a boat, whether it's some people getting into the river and then others walking over them. We basically, they're not telling us how. But they will come and spend a lot of money when they are seeking that vote. 35 million shillings for Senate position, woman rep an average of 22.8 million shillings, MP an average of 18 million shillings, MC an average of 3 million shillings. That's a lot of money. And the people who come, it's just candidate after candidate are spending this kind of money, to secure a vote. Do you think then they will be bothered about what is going on with your life after that? Somebody already comes and feels, I spent 35 million shillings to get this seat. Now, Thomas, don't ask me questions, my friend. Schools are reopening, so what do you want? So you take your child to school.
I have things to do, man.
Like
me, I have children.
Like many other business enterprises in this country, the people who really benefit from this 35 million that we're speaking of is a middleman. Not the
mwananchi.
No, not the burden bearer who has the bulk of the votes. There's always a middle person who is supposed to be a voice, a middle person who's supposed to be an opinion shaper, a middle person who's supposed to be the person, the community mobilizer, that person. Because it isn't as though you simply go and throw the money in the air and people pick it up. No, there are people who are known to be given the money so that they can actually dish it out. Now, many of these individuals keep the bulk of this money. Or they give it to their chosen lieutenants. And there are very many Kenyans. You see, the assumption seems to be that all the people who vote at some point or the other get this 50 bob. Many don't. Many don't even go for the 50 bob. But a sizable number who represent these groups are the ones who attend meetings, who go to whatever functions, and they're the ones who end up with the 50 bob or the 100 shillings. And on the rare occasion, you have some serious politician who goes to a place and actually campaigns with 1,000 shillings. Yes, you do. And some of these, why I'm calling them a smart politician is because if you have a family of 5 adults, it means that family that day has got 5,000 shillings.
Yes.
You may not appear again, but what you've done is you've given them something that they have never seen. And they're unlikely to see. And they're also unlikely to vote for anybody else other than you.
Of course, they've pledged their allegiance to you by receiving that 1,000.
Yes. Now, that is what the politician has done. They've bequeathed you a lifetime gift. Chances are that person may never come to that area again.
Yeah.
But you remember the 1,000 bob.
Yeah.
My friend, 1,000 bob is a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. Here's the thing, though. Just like you said, and even Tomboy was saying, that small group of people that attends those meetings that then receives the cash handouts is the same that will come for politician A and candidate B and candidate C, right? The person who has not attended one rally is likely not to attend the second rally or the third rally. So there's a small group of people, let's even say that they are 1,000 or 2,000 that receive the money, cannot be the ones that make a decision for the other 20,000, 100,000 that make a decision at the ballot.
Actually, yes and no.
There could be the influencers, they'll come around now and they'll campaign, but the money will not come down to the other 100,000 people. The money will just be with these 5,000 people. But do we feel this 700 million shillings with these 5,000 people? We don't feel it.
No. You don't and you do. Let me explain what I mean. I had a conversation some 6-7 years ago with a group of border riders whom I used to see on my way to one of the sites I used to work in. A relationship developed with time because next to where they were perched, there was a fruit market. Well, there were stalls, it wasn't a market. And there's a conversation that opened my eyes to many things. And they were explaining to me how it is one politician was going to make it. And I asked, how sure are you? And they gave me a scenario. Now, that scenario really blew my mind. They said, we know these people and we know who can actually help us. So that we don't know, we do. I said, but let me tell you what we do, okay? So as to make it interesting, we talk among ourselves. I said, you know how many of us are in this region? I said, I have no idea. I said, okay, if you look at this location, we're around 100 people. Say, you know what we do? We also know the politicians, the people who talk to the politicians, the people the politicians talk to. Say, over time, we've come to understand what politicians do. So we don't wait for them to come to us. We go to them. So I said, what do you mean? I said, most of them are in Nairobi. Okay? So we send envoys to Nairobi to go and talk to the would-be Mheshimiwa. I said, what do you tell them? We tell them to just simply come for a rally. And it isn't one person. Different groups go to different people. Okay? And some of them are people they know. And said, we always tell them that when they come, we don't expect them to give us money to come back with. We simply want them to come and speak because we believe they're the ones who can represent us. I said, you do this? I said, yes, we do it around 4 of them. People who've shown an interest and people whom we know have money. I said, really? They said, yes. They'll come 3 or 4 times. Said, we ensure no money is asked of them. I said,
this is at the point of wooing them.
Yes, I said, so how does it work? He said, by the time they've come 3rd or 4th time, the crowds get bigger and bigger. I said, but the crowds don't expect money. He said, look, we've told them there's a time when they will get money, but not now. This one, just come and listen to the person. After all, it's good to listen to politicians. He said, now, as the elections get nearer, this is why we tell them, you decide whether it is you want to stand, but we've done our bit. Yes, but the next phase is really out of the hands because the crowds are much bigger. And that's the point we tell them, a little money may be necessary to mobilize and do this and the other. Said because they've seen the crowds, they will issue. And they also told me something that I found interesting. He said, believe me, the moment they're willing to spend that money, we know we've got them hooked. They'll spend more.
But then doesn't it give a false sense of what the real situation is? Because these same crowds, CT, these same individuals are the ones who are crying today. Who else is it? The ones who are saying that we cannot send our children to school, that things are really looking bad in the country, that we're not able to afford life. We're not even talking about afford luxuries. We're not able to afford life. It's no different.
No, what?
It's the people who've received this money, the mobilization fee or whatever you want to call it, are the same people today. It's not different.
My take-home message is this. Remember, these are people who already have a business. They're border riders.
They have a job.
It's not as though they wait for the politician every day. They have a job. What my take-home message was, there are places in this country where people have made electioneering a business for themselves at the local level. That was my take-home message.
It's clear.
They've figured it out and they said, there are these guys who want these things. They want it badly enough. So let us organize ourselves so that we benefit from it as much as we possibly can.
Right, so it's not really then about economic empowerment and development
No.
Those people,
things don't matter.
By the time they are starting that conversation, with an end goal, which is make money out of these candidates.
Process.
And you already mapped out, you have identified 5. Out of those 5, 3 you'll succeed. And you'll make as much money from these 3 as possible and then elect 1. Right? But this is a small group of people who are organizing that way. These are border people. You'll find others, it's women's group. You'll find others, it's what and the other. Some youth group here and the other. Cumulatively, those people are the ones I'm saying are what? 10,000 at most. The rest of the people are the ones who turn up for that meeting, are the ones who listen,
have no idea what's going on in the background.
They don't know that this guy has come in here and he has unleashed a lot of money. If you receive a lesso, you're okay. You're like, I got a lesso.
If you receive a T-shirt, you think it's a T-shirt. For some person, it is an item of clothing that they wear on specific days.
Yes.
That T-shirt.
So
if you receive 2, you are happy. And if you're able to come to, say, a shopping center in a village, and you are able to drink that 500 ml of soda, you know, and eat a scone or something, as far as you're concerned, you know, that isn't bad because you're not spending money.
Sure. But you know what it's doing? Is that it is solving immediate problems and sacrificing the long-term issues that should be handled.
It's not even solving a problem, my dear.
I mean, look, if you were thirsty and you get a soda, that solves a problem right there. If you didn't have a T-shirt, the one you had a hole in it, somebody gives you one. All right, so you have a complete article of clothing to wear. That's an immediate issue that's been solved. But if you're looking at the long-term issues, which should be the issues that should be concentrated upon when we are talking about this whole process, that doesn't happen.
No.
Those are not being solved. And I think that's the problem because today, Monday 26th, today, people around the country, not just in Nairobi, around the country, Kitale, Kisumu, Turkana, Marsabit, wherever, are crying about one thing: school fees. They can't send their children to school. Some are saying, we will go next week because, okay, maybe by then I would have been paid a little bit of money, I can take my children to school. Those are the issues that I'm talking about that are not solved by that problem, that are not solved by that process at that time.
No,
the money is being spread, is being thrown about for this individual to go and do their business. Can you imagine? The entire country held at a standstill, handing out little bits of money for this individual to run their business. Meanwhile, the issues that perennially dog the nation being thrown to the wayside. But then they pop up July 26 school fees. They pop up August 1st famine. They pop up vaccination. They pop up like that. And they keep coming. But an immediate problem is solved and everybody says, okay, it's fine. But it's not fine.
You know, the thing you must bear in mind is you are talking about a very large population who are resident in this country who don't think in terms of those long-term projects you're talking about. Their existence is based on immediacy, my friend. Today, am I going to eat? The school issue is looked at from the platform of today.
Now, what I'm saying, CT, is that if we're making decisions, then if we're making decisions on who is selected to be in a leadership position, then you start to remove or start to reduce this burden of the pressure of today. This food that you're looking for today, if you're making decisions about who is going to be in a position of leadership, guess what? You start to put a pin in the pressure of this today, because then you wouldn't have to be looking at food that you have to eat for today.
I want to say again, I agree with what you're saying, that the decision of how tomorrow will look like is impacted by what you're doing today. But I still want to insist that I think a majority of people in a constituency, in a ward, in a county, do not vote because they received from a candidate.
No, they don't.
They are influenced. And this is where now I want to say, the same way we talk about abdicating our roles and responsibilities, we also abdicate our thinking and we delegate it to some people. This small group of boda of women leaders, those ones who are receiving the money, they're the ones who come to the people, influencing them on how to vote. They're the opinion leaders and opinion shapers. They're the ones who then will make you feel, hey, if I don't vote for CT, I'm going to lose my vote. Because very many people will tell you, I voted for CT so that I don't lose my vote. It's because Eric came and told you, everybody, by the way, everybody, we are all voting for CT. There are only two candidates. It's either you vote for CT or you vote for John. And John can't go anywhere. John is a loser. John is a non-starter. Vote for CT. You vote for CT, not because of what you understand CT to be doing.
No. Because of what I've heard in my ear.
It's because you heard me saying that CT is the candidate. I'm the one who was bought.
And CT is in the right party.
Yes.
So
the party that's dominant
in this
area. So he's our person. And then that thinking doesn't stop there. If CT is in the right party, it means CT then supports the next level of politicians up to the presidency.
Up to the presidency. Your preferred candidate, the one that you feel, this is the right person. That you never at one point interrogated CT and what CT stands for, and what CT's promises were, and what CT's capability of delivering was.
Neither have you put yourself into that process. Like you say, how there's always a separation between government and citizen, for example, or between leadership and the citizen. That there's always that separation. So, so it's for them to do without actually inputting yourself in this whole process and seeing me as an individual, me as a community, as a family, as society, where do we fit in this whole thing? And really, it does sound as if it's got to be some kind of scientific conversation, but to me, it's really very simple. That the things that we complain about on a daily basis, when you're making this decision, when a group comes to influence you, how far is the thinking where you say, okay, wait a minute, these things that we're worried about on a daily basis, how will they be solved by this individual? Or is it just about the influence that I'm hearing blaring in my ear during electioneering processes? We're putting ourselves in the process and saying, how then does it really impact? And I think until and unless this happens, you're going to continue having this kind of nonsense that we see. And guess what? The folks who are coming to ask you for the vote, they know that this is the way the thinking is.
Yes.
They know. They know very well that you're not going to think beyond that.
To get Ndu's vote, all I need is to get Eric.
Who will come and talk to him? That's it.
That's all. All I need. These people who they know. You talk to the guys in Boda Boda. You talk to those who are people who are in organized groups. Boda Boda guys are organized. You talk to women's groups that are organized. Market groups that are organized. Reach out to those ones.
And you know they're not going to think beyond that.
Yes. And let me understand this. You know where these groups, why they're that powerful? Huh? In a village setting, these are the very people who have the financial might. You may not think it's might, but at a village level it's might to help you with these day-to-day problems that you may have. Because they earn some money, they do, and they also have a circle.
Yep.
And they have families. This individual whom you are thinking is a border rider, that person has a whole group of people who
is
are
an
dependent.
institution.
Yes, they're dependent on him. I'm using him here because there aren't very many female border riders in the village setting.
Yeah.
It's male. That person looks after a family. So even when you know that this is the individual who is part of that group that the politician gives money, it doesn't matter because some of that money will get to you, who is the relative. So this person is an influencer. So when they tell you there's a person to vote for, you are not going to quibble.
You don't really argue with them. Like,
You will not argue.
Yeah. Because they tell you, in fact, we even went to Nairobi, we met this so and so, we came back and we have discussed, and this person is going to really sort out our issues. What that person is not telling you is that we were going to Nairobi so we can get money from this person. It's not so that we can get this person to do anything for us as a community. And there goes the 35 million shillings, which you never received. You're just hearing today Kina Tomboya saying that you received 35 million shillings, and you're wondering, what do you mean?
Where?
35 million?
Where was I when they were
So
showing
my
this?
senator spent 35 million shillings. How much did I get? My MP spent 18 million shillings. My woman rep spent 22 million shillings. Really? How much of that actually came to you? And yet you voted. Go around the country and ask people. 700 million shillings was spent around here in the last election campaign. You look.
And they'll ask you, what are you talking about?
By who? Yeah, they were doing some few lessons here and there, but 700 million.
No.
Where did it go? It went somewhere. It's just that you were the good, you're the commodity.
And remember,
it went somewhere to buy you as a commodity.
The issue of money being spent and money being kept, remember, even as money is issued and as money goes forth, whatever you see happening, you can rest assured that it goes upwards as well. There are levels at which money is received at a higher level. Just a bit of it is released to
So not all the money from Matia Senator goes down.
No.
It also goes up.
Yes.
In the political party.
Yes. Because for you to sit at the table to the point where you want to be senator, you need to be speaking to the owners of the party.
Yes.
You're not just going to be at the senator because at you have good intentions
and you have money.
Yes. And your Christian path is well known. No, that is all good and well, but you must show that you're somebody who is capable of being senator.
Of course.
And you must prove it to the party bigwigs. And that is with every party. It's like an entry fee for membership. So, understanding how this particular game is played and understand then the details of how it goes about. The people at the so-called location level, they've also understood it. And they've understood it very, 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 very well. As I said, for me it was such an eye-opener. Why it was even a big eye-opener, everything that I was told came to pass as I had been told. I had to say, I saw it and I said, hey, you mean to tell me this is how this thing works? All the ideas I'd had about how this thing works went out of the window.
Completely.
Yes. And even now, if you ask me, I'll tell you, I need to know the area you're talking about, and I need to talk to what I call the local influencers and listen to them, because they are the ones who actually know exactly what's going to go down and how it's going to go down. So this idea that somebody who wants to present themselves for an electoral position has might, it's not that simple. And that is why you will spend money and there's no guarantee you will actually get voted in. Because there are other issues at play. You go to the eastern part of the country where Wiper holds sway. You actually imagine that you are suddenly going to present yourself as this important person, and the party bigwigs have not given their okay.
If Kalonzo doesn't know you, forget it.
You may think you know, but my friend, if you don't belong to Fort Kenya and in the Bungoma County and that region, you actually think, or in Trans Nzoia, and you actually think that you are the person who is actually going to hey, you go ahead. Carry on with your thinking.
It's 9:30. Let's take a break. Let's see how the weather is looking like today in the country and around the world, and also how the roads are looking like now. And then after this break, let's cross over to Japan, where the Olympics are taking place. The Standard Group sports writer Robin Toskin is there. Kenya played a rugby match this morning. We want to get the results of that. Yesterday was the time for our Malkia. That's the Malkia Strikers, the volleyball team. What happened? We also had a boxer who yesterday lost, is on the next flight back home. But then we all know when we expect to start winning. So Robin will be telling us, when do we start harvesting our goals? Yes. 9:30. Good morning.
"24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Losing a loved one is never easy. The lingering memories, the what-ifs, but in all the gloom, we find ways of celebrating them. And here at the Standard Tributes, we aim to give your loved ones that befitting send-off. Visit www.standardmedia.co.ke/tributes today and post your loved one's tribute. In addition, get access to funeral services from our trusted vendors. The Standard Tributes, keeping memories alive.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. The weather with Spice FM.
All right, the sun is out in Nairobi. 15, highs of 22, lows of 11 today. Cloudy conditions at 13 in Nyeri, highs of 20, lows of 11. 14 will be the low in Nakuru, where it's cloudy at 16. Partly sunny conditions through Eldoret today at 15, highs of 21. 29 will be the high in Kisumu. It's mostly cloudy at 23. Mostly cloudy at 24 in Kakamega, highs of 27 and lows of 15. And we'll look at lows of 23 and mostly cloudy conditions in Mombasa. It's mostly sunny in Malindi at 26 with highs of 27. 25 will be the high in Kampala, where it's mostly sunny at 23. Taking a look into Dar es Salaam, mostly sunny at 24, highs of 30, and we'll see it slightly warming up in Johannesburg at 6, highs of 14 and lows of 2 today. It's mostly sunny at 24 in Lagos with highs of 29, and we'll see highs of 32 in Kinshasa. It's sunny at 19. Light rain in Beijing at 30 with highs of 31 and lows of 24. Thunderstorms, warning, yellow in Paris at 17. Highs of 24 and lows of 17. And it's cloudy in London at 17. It goes to highs of 24. Coming into early Monday morning in New York, it's cloudy at 24. We'll see highs of 32 and lows of 23.
You know, when you see someone being jailed, a governor or two or someone who stole, then people will fear. Because our problem is not the borrowing, it's the stealing.
We've become actually a nation of thieves. The only thing we lack is an opportunity to steal.
The guys who quote the Bible and say, I'm a Christian and all that, and you know they're thieves. Return what you have stolen 4 times. If you know that you have property or anything that you have stolen, just return and say, My God does not allow me to hold stolen things.
We are also a reflection of you because you elect us. You know, we don't get into our office by ourselves. We are a reflection of the people who elect us.
We don't want to go to the streets. We have a constitution that enables us to assert our will.
When the legislature are now being taken as hostage by the executive for whatever reason, we are now bound by what they want us to do.
This is just outside the realms of reality. We have impunity written into the DNA of our political class.
How old were you when you learned that Jeshi Lokop is Jeshi Lawokov?
I can't say it very well. No, I'm to Jeshi Lokop.
And everyone knows. Okay.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Okay, so what is it looking like now? Coming out of traffic hour in a short while, but still we see quite a lot of traffic coming out of Wayaki Way and then going towards Chiromo. Remember that some part of that road was closed, so folks are going then towards Kipande and then using the one-way out, but be careful about that. Moranga Road also seems still quite heavy for now. Still seeing some traffic on Mombasa Road, but that seems to have let off just a little bit. Landis Road and then connecting from Jogo Road also. A little bit of red there, but it looks much better now. Still some heavy traffic, however, on Langata Road as you then try to join Bagavi or then join the Nyeri Stadium roundabout and then out into the city. All right, so it doesn't look too bad now. Thika Road still going to be like this for some time as kids going back to school, so we're going to keep an eye on that through today. Help us out as well. If you get stuck somewhere through today, find a good route that anybody can use. Talk to us on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
Spice and everything nice. All right.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
The biggest conversation continues. In the room with you is Siti Muga, Nduoko, Eric Latif. So we are in the Olympics as a country, right?
Mhm.
So far, we've had 2 boxers leave. We have had our ladies volleyball team lose to Japan yesterday, but that was just one game. The next ones we could do better. Maybe, those girls are good. Our rugby team was playing this morning. Who were we playing? And then things were like that. They went the way they went. But we still have hope for the next one. Robin Toskin is the sports editor, and he is in Japan. He's been following this. Robin, I don't know if you can hear us. And once you hear us, you'll be able to tell us what has been happening in Japan. You see, the thing about us is we send all these teams. We have swimmers, we have rugby, we have volleyball, we have, in fact, this time we even have, did we have beach volleyball as well?
Yes.
For the Olympics. And we have all these teams that we send, and the ones that we mainly get, medals from is track and field. But we've also done well previously in our appearances in other sporting activities as well. There are those who argue that the best thing for us to do would be just to focus on sending people track and field. Forget it.
That's limiting the capacity of people who may be interested in the other sports. Yes. I mean, it doesn't matter. We seem to, this is the thinking, because we do so well in athletics, we forget that the other competing nations who also send their best, it's just that we are better than those. So surely, how well do you think they build their capacity? I never thought I would see a European competitor in the 3,000, say for instance, steeplechase, which you've dominated for so long that you actually think it was actually manufactured in Kenya and then taken abroad.
No,
okay?
I can't hear you.
Now you see competition coming in. People from other parts of the world also being able to compete just as favorably. In the same way, sports that we are not traditionally known for, like cycling. There's this bundu bashing cycling that I see, where people come with these sort of mountaineering bikes and so forth, or there are these competitions, they see, what are they called? It isn't an Olympic sport, but where you swim, you ride a bicycle, you carry things.
Decathlon.
Yes, those ones.
Yeah.
Huh? Now, there are Kenyans who are able to do those things. All they require is an opportunity.
Yes.
Yes. If you had Jamaicans competing in a sport that requires snow, which we know they don't have, huh? Cold weather ice, which they don't have,
and they won the Olympics. Which year was this?
It was bobsledding. It was.
It's yes, bobsleigh, sledding.
Yes.
The truth is, if people are interested in a sport, and why shouldn't we just encourage them to do so and continue?
I think so. I think that there's a lot that can be done. I mean, the Olympics then provides you to see the opportunities then that are clearly there and present for everybody to take a part in. And I think it also does a lot to show then in terms of what countries are able to do to support their citizens. Because yes, look at a country like the United States. Do they wait to hear that because you do well in athletics or because you do well in swimming, then you should not then compete in boxing? They don't wait to be told or wait to be suggested to. No, go for it and do it. And that's one of the things, that's what makes the countries great, right? That you can field people in whatever sport, so long as they've shown an interest, they will be supported.
And they meet the minimum standards that are
Absolutely.
required.
So
Yes.
why hold anybody back? If anything, it should be encouraged to say that here we are with this kind of global competition that takes place every 4 years. And these are the disciplines within which you're able to compete. Why not say, from a national level, to come out and say, look, this is what is available. This is how you can compete. This is how you can contribute to raising your country's name on a global scale. Come, therefore, and we will support you. Why not? Things that you didn't even know. Shooting, archery, judo, whatever.
Case in point, we were not always on the world map when it comes to, say, rugby, for instance. But we now are, because of Sevens team. Now, because that is possible, it tells you that it is possible with other sports
For
as
sure,
well.
for sure.
It's very, very possible.
It absolutely is. And I think that also this is where you see the role then that governments play in coming out to support their people.
But you see, it also tells you, you see, for these sports to be what it is, the competition ought to begin at school level. Meaning some of these sports need to be introduced at to children, to young people, when they are still at that stage where they're in school and they're growing.
Of course.
And the competition among themselves. So that when you're talking about, say, a national level, at the county, at the sub-county level, you already have competition in these sports.
Because the extracurricular part of education is focused upon. I mean, if you look at some of the countries in Western, across Europe, even in the United States, you have babies being thrown into the pool at 9 months. You have young girls and boys being thrown onto a gymnastic mat when they can just walk and they're doing flips in the air. So it has become part of who they are. So even when they're studying the academic side of things, the extracurricular side also comes into play. And so then it becomes very easy to then nurture these things later on. And I do agree. I think that something like sports, which can contribute to a country's nationalism, needs to be at the very, very, very young age. The same way you talk about, some of these things that we talk about, understanding other things that have to do with nationalism, advocacy, learning about politics. It's the same thing here, that you need to encourage it. Because by the time a child is 5-6 years old, the window period of them learning something like a sport or a language is already gone.
I think, and tomorrow we'll have a conversation about sports management.
Yeah.
I think it all boils down to that. If you look at the kind of quality that we have in the country, if it comes to swimming, it comes to volleyball, it comes to very many of these other, even bobsledding. In this country, people sled.
Is
It's
it
just that they're not
or
bob.
I say
Or
they bob.
they
Oh, no, I was
bob.
going to say they bob.
They bob. Using various things and kids play these things. If we just enhance the sports associations and such groupings, you'll find we can even take people in archery.
Absolutely.
Because archery, what is that? Uta na mshale.
Bow and arrow.
Uta na mshale. Those ones we have.
Nicely. Probably.
You're talking about javelin. If our guy could actually just use YouTube,
Train himself.
and go ahead and become a world champion, it's possible for this to happen. So we have the capacity to do all these things. Only look at, so how is our National Olympic Committee of Kenya managed?
Our committees, when it comes to sport, are more important than the athletes.
Yes, now, because who wants to go to Tokyo is the issue. Am I going? Did I get a
Do you remember the
tracksuit?
Rio Olympics? There's a scandal that the end of that scandal hasn't actually been arrived at
It's
yet.
still in court.
Yes.
Yeah.
The one before that, in Salt Lake Olympics,
Yes.
we still had a scandal.
Yes.
It led to the removal of the person who was then the president of the National Olympic Committee.
Yes.
This one for Rio led to the removal of the person who was the president of the National Olympics Committee.
And the
And
CS
like
has
that.
issues and counting.
Yes.
And why? Because the official decided they were more important than the athletes. You have people going to Rio and you're wondering, what on earth is this person going to do in Rio?
This is the big question. I mean, even today, we have scandals in sport right now that the CS has had to come out and speak over and had to make some rules now. Because it's then not about nurturing sport, whereby we have young girls who essentially have to then be forced to sleep with officials to get a place on the national team, for example. Many sports across the country. And now has come up with a directive and said, you know what, we're going to nip this thing in the bud. So it has gone so far left, whereby you should be looking at a place where you should be able to nurture sport from a very young age. Because the benefits that they can actually do for individuals, for the country at large, unbelievable. What it can actually do. Sport can single-handedly raise a country's profile, and you don't really need to do
How
much else.
do you explain a situation where you have kit, it's been provided for, and then the athletes don't get the kit that is meant for them? And then
Well, you see people chomping about
not
town.
only that, somebody goes and opens up a sports shop. I mean, you're thinking, what madness is this? What utter madness is this? And yes, that madness reigns. So what you're saying is the adverse circumstances under which our athletes operate, they still produce these favorable results. Now, I ask myself, okay, what if they actually got what is due to them?
Yeah. What if we just made it work?
Yes. What if they actually got the support that is due to them? How well would we actually genuinely do?
What we see a lot of is track and field because of Athletics Kenya. So
Yes.
Athletics Kenya is big. It has all the internal politics, but also it has a lot of attention that is driven to it. Imagine the Kenya Volleyball Federation, the Kenya Basketball Federation, the swimming,
Rugby.
the rugby.
Yeah, mention
Can you imagine if all those were actually
boxing.
working well, such that we know clearly this is how you get into the Olympics team as a boxer. This is how you get into the Olympics team as an archer. This is how you get into the Olympics team as a bobsledger.
Sledder.
As a bob. So one bob, two bobs.
Yes, and this is how we can develop this particular sport. Would beat those guys. We had Kenyans in the Winter Olympic Games.
Yes, we did.
It's possible.
We have had Kenyans in the Olympics in cycling.
Yes.
Just because somebody had gone out there, has had the opportunity, has participated in one or two races, and then they come in and they get the ticket and they go and represent the country. There are very many others, even in the country, who we can develop cycling in the country and become big. Politics.
35 million.
So the 35 million goes. 35 million goes, you forget about everything
All
else.
those other things you're talking about that could actually help in the development of the country. Because oftentimes we think development, we think roads. There's a lot more that you can actually bring into the development cycle.
Yes.
So much more.
The thinking of the stadia, it was really a very good idea.
The thinking was great.
Because when you look at the cumulative benefits that arise from the development of these things, the existence itself is encouragement, so someone knows this is where we're going to have this sport, this is what we're going to do. But then, sports development in this country seems to exist in the theory and the plans of what it is that should be done.
Yep.
And yet, bodies that are supposed to do this exist. And these bodies even get funding. But you don't see what the funding brings
You actually
about.
don't even see the support that they receive. Now that we've talked about that, Those who go to represent this country in boxing, in karate, in taekwondo, are people who are nurtured and developed at social halls.
Yes, they are.
Especially in this city.
Yes.
Now, go to City Hall or cross over to KICC where Lieutenant General Badi is heading NMS and ask them, so what are you doing about our social halls? How many social halls are receiving support from the city county government of Nairobi? What kind of support are they receiving?
And for what
Such that you see, yes. Because those are the places, the whole idea of a social hall is it's a place where people can come and nurture their talent, come and interact.
Kind of thing.
Yes.
Oh, by the way,
And we had 17 social halls in Nairobi. Since the 80s, not a single extra social hall has been developed.
All that
in
has
Nairobi.
happened is that they become more and more dilapidated.
They have become dilapidated. The only ones that are working are those ones, for example, in Kaloleni, where we have boxers, and it's because of somebody in the local community.
kept it alive, yes.
Let's just keep this alive. Go to the others, dead.
And the idea of the social halls was really a good idea, because it was the one place where, say, for instance, it was a community hall, really. Let's say, for instance, there was some entertainment social hall.
Yeah.
I remember as a young person, I remember social halls even within Mombasa, where on Saturdays, a certain portion of the social halls was for local brew. They were legal. There was nothing illegal about it. If you wanted to go somewhere where you could have a drink, you went to a social hall and the drinks were available. There were vendors who were selling them.
Yep.
They were actually social halls. People knew. If you look at the history of this country and the campaigns and many of these things that started off even before independence, it was in social halls. They have a very rich history.
Yeah. Even our politics was nurtured there. Trade union movement was nurtured in social halls. And yet we killed them.
It was the hub where all these things took place. Now imagine, and people identified with social halls. So if you had, as Eric says, built upon this idea, the issue of at a local level, people not being able to access some benefits wouldn't be the story that we have today, because you'd know. Because from the social hall, this is the outreach that you have. But it looks like the culture that took over was destroy what exists and then give the impression that you're creating a new one.
Grab.
And all you do is talk about it. You never actually really build it. You just talk about it.
The Kasarani Sports Complex has received a lot of money from the what's it called? The Global Olympics body. It has received a lot of money from FIFA to develop more and more facilities at Kasarani. That complex is not just that stadium.
No. There's everything in there.
Everything.
Basketball courts, volleyball courts, taekwondo sections, so many things that
there's hardly anything it doesn't have
that you wouldn't find in there.
And that was the whole idea. Come up with that entire
and how
sports
old is
complex.
it?
Since 1985.
And who built it?
Mzee. No, it was 88.
China. It was a Chinese project. Came to us with all those benefits. Now you tell me. It even came with how I mean, there's nothing it didn't come with. Housing for officials, God knows what. It was a genuine complex.
Yeah. So the whole idea of developing our sports is actually there. The blueprints are there. Getting them done. Those are our issues. We're talking about, so we saw, for example, with that whole group of Kina Injera and the others in rugby, getting our rugby to a certain level. We saw with Kina Wangila Napunyi getting boxing to a certain level and participating in these international events. We have seen with Malaika and Malkia. And how volleyball can actually work. But if you actually go around the country, you will find more men playing volleyball than women. And you ask yourself, so where is our men volleyball team?
Yeah. Why can't they reach?
Why can't they reach to that point? Why is it that we don't see them going to the Olympics and qualifying for such big things? What is happening? All these things, we just have them. We don't support them. We let them die.
You know, Eric, it's interesting you mentioned rugby because if you look at the proliferation of rugby around the country, it actually began with people who played rugby at college level and happened to be trained teachers as well. So When they went to the schools that they went to, because by the way, posting it's not where you want to go, you just posted. So it began, the seed was planted by people who knew the game, had played it at that college level, inculcating it in the students whom they were teaching. Now, the moment that is across the country, you then have a large selection of people who are able to actually play rugby. Prior to that, rugby was just in Nairobi. A few, maybe Mombasa, maybe Nakuru, maybe Kisumu, maybe. But when you got to a point where when you heard of rugby competitions, it was in Nairobi.
Yep.
But now it is a national sport where you have teams competing from all over the country now.
Sure, Dallas Sevens.
That's how
Nakuru.
you actually get a critical mass of people to choose from. And that is what helped build what you see.
But look, is that not what happens with the scouting that happens in the US, for example, across sports? What are scouts doing? Scouts are not positioned in just the major sporting cities of the US, for example. That's their job. Every year, they're going around all sporting disciplines and they're saying, in high schools, scouts are in high schools. Scouts are at the primary level of schools and looking and seeing where is talent and where can it be nurtured? Who can we send? The draft pick for the NBA, for example, it's a 15, 16, 17-year-olds now who are getting into this lifetime of sports because they see that this is something that kids can actually do that will contribute to.
And it's a very well-organized system.
Absolutely.
And everyone knows how it works.
Yes.
Yes. Those who are interested, it's not difficult. Ours, you are told of a structure, but the practice of that particular structure is something that you can look for until kingdom come. This legacy
Policy.
Now, I'm just thinking, because I'm thinking and I'm saying, it can't continue this way. It will give at some point. And that is why you saw me pausing and thinking,
what will it take?
Yes, because do these leaders plan to move to some other planet, some other country? Because all these things we keep talking of, they cannot continue ad infinitum. They cannot continue, and there's nothing endless about it. At some point, it'll halt. And yet, we're talking about things that are extremely preventable. Or, in the case of getting things done, many of these things we talk about are doable. They're very doable.
I think about individuals who actually, because of their sporting activities supported by their country, actually put their country's name on the map. Before that, truth be told, you wouldn't have known that this country existed. And because of sporting activities like the Olympics, where they were actually able to come and excel in a particular sport, suddenly that country's name was on the map because this individual was able to do 1-2, or this team was able to do 1-2. When with the balkanization of the Soviet Union, you have very many small countries and the individuals who previously would just be known as USSR. But then it broke up, and then you see countries like Serbia, Moldova that came out of that, and you have some of the best tennis players, for example, coming out of countries like that. Could have been because of their previous training that they received under the Soviet Union. But then they were able to be put on the map because of their activity in sport. And I am saying that you cannot run away from something like this, organized and given the attention that it should be. You can't run away from what it does for nationalism. You can't. And I think that a lot more incubation and attention towards that incubation process needs to be applied. The benefits are enormous. And it's not something I'm saying to be sensational. It can be seen across the world. It can be seen and it can be done.
Look at China. China has always been a very big country with a very huge population. But if you look at what their party has done when it has focused its attention on certain things, the economic uplifting. But since we're talking sports, look at sports. There is no single sport that you will not find China participating in.
They're all over. They're everywhere.
They're everywhere. Just name it. This year, you may not find them among the top 10. Give it another year or so, and
they'll be back.
Or not only back, but they'll be right there.
They'll always be among the top 10.
Yes.
Even Russia. You can come up with all the scandals about them and now give them some title and call them some certain nationality or people with no nation or whatever. But they will be among the top 3 in terms of medal haul.
You know, right now, Japan is one of the world's leading... has one of the world's leading team when it comes to rugby. Japan was not a rugby playing nation that people knew of.
Can you imagine? Anyway, we'll have a conversation with Toskin maybe, hopefully tomorrow. We had some technical issues today. But CT, as we conclude today's proverb.
The rhinoceros, which, as you said correctly, never dances, comma, with the monkey, full stop.
The rhinoceros never dances with the monkey.
Full stop.
I was hoping you'd ask the question, who does a rhinoceros dance with?
But I already told you, the rhinoceros
It's okay. For
does
today,
not
let's just
dance.
call it
Okay? Forget about who does it dance with. It doesn't dance. Join us again tomorrow. How lovely having you today. It's now 10 a.m.